Saturday, everybody. Today's going to be a special day. We're going to be interviewing Paul Missell, who is author, and he's going to be telling us all about his book, The Whole, and we're going to go over that information. Before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and bring on our co-host and everybody. So how are you guys doing? Let me go ahead and get this screen to look better. There we go. How you doing, Sophia?
Hey, I'm hanging in there.
Yeah. How you doing, Paul?
I'm very well, thanks for asking. Things have been quite busy, actually. You could say life's been mental.
Literally.
You could say
You
that in many ways,
idealist,
yes.
Yeah,
you.
And of course,
Yeah.
my co-host here wanting to get in on the action
Oh,
as usual.
bark once for
oh,
no and two for
you can.
yes. Yeah, man, it's a cute dog.
So
I'm gonna go off camera
I hope you
just a
guys are
sec.
having a great morning this afternoon.
Absolutely.
Yeah, can't
It's
complain.
bipolar
Had
here.
enough coffee.
Bipolar.
Yeah, the weather, it's like last week it was like, 50 degrees, 40 degrees, and now it's like 80 degrees today. So it's
Same
bipolar.
here in Texas.
I hate when that happens. But I'm going to go off camera because I'm having a few bandwidth issues. We had storms last night that brought all this hot weather in. And
Mhm.
so I'm going to get off camera so we can have a cleaner feed. And I want to say hello to the audience and everybody. And we're going to get right down to it, though. Hey, Joel, I see you out there. And I'm sure people will start filing in. I think we've got a few people out there in the audience so far. Feel free to engage in the live chat. Once we're done with the interview, we can bring folks on stage and we can feel free to ask questions of any of us for anything. So, Paul, if you will, tell us a
Mhm.
little
Mhm.
bit about your background, where you're
Mhm.
from, who you are,
Sure.
your worldviews, and then we'll get into the book.
Okay, so I'm a British guy. My background is in education and support, learning support, that sort of thing. I worked at like a rock school type place, actually patronised by. I'm going to do some name dropping here. Jules Holland and George Martin, of all people. Never actually met either of
Mm.
them, but they supported the project.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
so since then, I've been largely interested, mostly in philosophy of religion, philosophy of science, philosophy of language, etc. And I'm kind of like a veteran of the forums where lots of these ideas get debated. And I consider myself less of a keyboard warrior, more of like a keyboard scout. So I've been sort of like surveying the terrain and looking at the different arguments that people present and seeing where I find validity in them and where I don't. Um, and I've had a few conversations, much like yourself, Scott, actually, with Matt Dillahunty, and debated a few
Mm-hmm.
things with him. Um, so the book itself actually came out of the fact that I had kind of like a car crash conversation with the guy. Really went off the rails. It's totally terrible. Um, and I started planning like my next foray, and I wanted it to be more structured. I wanted it to follow a certain pattern so that we dealt with topics in a certain way. It soon came to light that what I was planning was actually too long for a single conversation, and it was more like what I was doing was drafting out a chapter plan for a book, and a message that would be more than just a single conversation. So the book is conversational in style, and the idea is it takes you through the kind of the what and the why and the implications and the objections of a philosophy of, how do I say this, panentheistic non-dual idealism. So very similar to where
Mm.
you guys are coming from about the primacy of consciousness and all of that kind of stuff. The main difference I see is kind of semantic. Actually, it's just a case of like, I call mind at large God, and
Mm-hmm.
atheistic types who believe in a mind at large will sort of like refuse that terminology. I see our key difference is basically being you guys are like, no, let's just leave the terms. They've got too much baggage. Let's get rid of them. And I'm like more like wanting to reclaim the terms. So I'm coming from like a reformist point of view. So I'd rather challenge the baggage than tacitly accept it. But I'm flexible. So if it helps to use the term and it challenges the baggage, then I say use it. When it doesn't help and it's like acceptance of the baggage and actually, causing more harm than good, in that case, I just say, well, just dump the term in that case, So it's like a pragmatic flexibility. I don't insist that we use the religious language, but at the same time, I don't want to just cede the territory. I think Bernardo Kastrup makes a similar point. It's like about not wanting to completely cede the linguistic territory to the folks who have the most politically motivated, economically motivated, most manipulative, and incoherent usages of them. I think there's a lot of hypocrisy in like so-called Christian conservatism, for example. But we can get deeper into stuff like that as we go, and I've waffled on far too long for an introduction.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
I'm
right.
gonna have
And
some questions for you, Paul, for sure.
What was that, Sophia?
yeah,
I said I'm definitely gonna have some questions for you for sure.
Awesome. Sounds cool.
yeah, that's what we want to do. We want to deconstruct. We want to, not deconstruct, but we want to just expose exactly your ideas out here. So yeah, and so so would you claim yourself a perennialist, sort of like all gods, all religions, or are you mainly focused on Christianity or Islam or any particular god form or theism?
I'm absolutely perennialist. My third chapter is on universalism, perennialism, pluralism, that sort of thing. The idea is that there's actually a common thread, a golden thread, if you like, running through the faith traditions and other philosophical traditions that is actually saying the same thing. At surface level of all of the traditions would be like they're completely incompatible. They're all saying different things. But some cases it's like a rose by any other name. It doesn't matter whether you call it Brahman, whether you call it Christ consciousness, whether you call it the Great Spirit. These things are pretty much pointing at the same thing. They're pointing at a unitive, conscious basis of reality.
Yeah, like a non-dual sort of
Absolutely,
approach.
that is the common theme. It's there throughout all the traditions. As soon as you know what you're looking for, it leaps out at you off the page. If you have an understanding of non-duality and you read the Bible, suddenly all of these things that you were looking at one way, you start to see a different interpretation coming out of them. It's sort of like encoded philosophy, if you will.
Right, but like,
Go ahead, Sophia.
how would you get around that though? With like a lot of things that are in the Old Testament that promotes like that God agrees with slavery and things like that, and also, why do you think that we should hold on to terms like God? Because me personally, I associate the word God mostly with institutionalized religion, which I think has done a lot of harm.
Yes.
And so I think we should just throw the term out altogether and just see it for what it is, which is consciousness.
Yeah.
And what do we need that term for? What? That's two questions, I know, but take your time.
No, I do appreciate that perspective. I appreciate it completely. Chapter 2, in fact, is called "Why Call It God," and I go pretty deeply into it. Essentially, it's a three-letter word that has caused a lot of how should I say kerfuffle over the years, to put it lightly. It has caused a lot of problems and a lot of suffering. That isn't necessarily tied to the spiritual part of it, though, which is the spiritual core of the religion. It's more about the application of the religion over the years, the politicization, the literalization, and just abuse, basically, of spiritual ideas, as I see it. Now, like I say, there's two different approaches to that. You can take your approach and you say, all right, this word like has got so much built up behind it, so much misunderstanding, so much manipulation and oppression, and just, let's just dump it and use different words, say mind at large, say primacy of consciousness, etc. And that's okay.
Well,
That's okay. There's
these
nothing
words,
wrong with that.
yeah, these words can be tools. So,
Yeah.
that's what words are. They're just tools, pointers, and
Yeah.
I'm not I don't have word phobia, so I'm not
Mm.
scared of the words. Like they don't
Yeah.
worry me or bother me. It's just that it really depends on who I'm speaking to. So if
Hmm.
I'm speaking to someone who's more inclined to resonate with theism, then I can better, promote my ideas to that person
Yeah.
using the common language. If I'm speaking to an agnostic or an atheist or somebody who has sort of hangups with that, then I'll simply refrain from using words like gods or spiritual or things like that because they're all just words. They all kind of point to the same overall understanding. Like, I'll oftentimes say, like, really, like Jungian psychology, for example, like psychology in general,
Mm.
is just another way of saying spirituality because it's all about your conscious experience.
Yeah.
It's all about dealing with your shadow, as they call it in psychology. It's all
Mm.
about, kind of like refining your experience, your consciousness. It's all
Oh,
all it's all
that's
about
shadow, man.
consciousness. Yeah,
He's a real pain.
yeah, yeah,
You have trouble with your
I don't
shadow
fully
side
agree
too?
with that because I mean
yeah. Go ahead, Sophia.
So,
I was just saying I don't really agree with that because like when we hear the word God, for the most part, we're gonna associate it with organized religion,
yeah.
mainly Abrahamic religions, because I mean religious people, they're not gonna accept idealism or mysticism just because you're using the word God, right? Let's be real about that.
Mm.
Secondly,
Hmm.
I do kind of get what you're saying because when I was a Christian and then figured out that there is truth in the Bible, which
Mm.
was borrowed from ancient mysticism anyway to
Mm-hmm.
begin with.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a lot of misleading stuff in there that can
Yeah.
really, excuse my language, fuck you up in the brain. And it's like can
Yeah.
cause you a stumbling block. And I'm just going to say, for example, I like to use my own experiences because that lets people know I actually experienced it and I'm not just talking out of the side of my ass. But like,
Mm-hmm.
you should submit yourself to a man and
Oh yeah. Yeah.
be with them until death do us part. And then, I'm in this relationship getting my ass whipped, beat down every
Mm-hmm.
day and shit. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, that's what I'm supposed to do because that's what the Almighty God wants me to do. And it's like, yeah, no, fuck you, God. Like at that point, and I'm like, that's obviously not God. Not that I would
Yeah.
say fuck you, God, but yeah, that's obviously not God. That's obviously some man-made thing. And
Yeah. Or
I've tried to
Damascus.
look at these scriptures and rearrange them and fucking say, okay, well, maybe it's not meant like that. Maybe there's an underlying meaning. So for a long time, I got into
Mm-hmm.
this whole thing about allegorical interpretation versus
Yeah.
literalism in the
Yeah.
Bible. And then for a while, I was trying to show other Christians, hey, if you look at it like this and you look at the
Mm-hmm.
deeper meaning, that's actually what it means. It doesn't really mean enslave somebody or, do
Mm.
this or that or the third, but they don't receive that at all. And then they call you a heretic and they tell you, oh, you're trying to
Sure.
change the scripture. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, everybody interprets the scriptures however the hell they want to. That's like literally how it is. And so I
Mm-hmm.
just got to the point where screw it, like throw all that shit out. It just causes more confusion than anything. And that's
Yeah.
kind of how I ended up there. So I'm just
Yeah.
giving y'all a little thought, my thought process of why I think ultimately it's probably just best to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can appreciate that perspective, absolutely. I completely own the heretic label myself. I don't even try and fight that. I am absolutely heretical where the church is concerned. I don't follow the religion. I don't take the Bible as infallible in any shape or form. I will argue if someone's saying that it's useless, that there is value there. But that's
Yeah.
kind of like a midpoint. That's like I'm not saying it's like it's an imperial artifact. It's not God. The Bible is not God. Those that treat it as though it is, they're practicing idolatry, which is actually completely already like condemned in the work that they're worshiping. So you
Their
totally
own work.
shouldn't
Yeah.
do that. Yeah, the work itself tells you not to worship things as if they are God when they're not, and there's no way that a Bible is God. Also, that the church will try and position itself as God as well, so that it's like union with the church is union with the divine, and that's where a lot of the
The
manipulation comes in.
mediator between you and God, you have to go through that mediator,
Yeah,
or you can't connect to God yourself. And
yeah,
I feel that's kind of stripping you of your own sovereignty to be able to connect to source
absolutely.
yourself, whatever
Yeah,
you want to call it, whatever.
yeah. I mean, religion itself, the word comes from religare, and it means reconnection. So it's about that reassociation with divine source, with the true nature of reality, which isn't chopped up into parts the way that our language describes it. It's more about a manifestation of the oneness, and they knew this back in ancient times. You go to like the ancient Greeks and Plotinus talking about the one. Advaita Vedanta came from the Indus Valley, and that was like centuries, if not millennia, before Christianity came along. And they just repackaged a load of the old ideas, added some extra stuff,
Yeah, and I
twisted some
feel like they
stuff.
watered it down. They
Yeah,
made it into something that's really not.
but they couldn't completely remove it, which is the good stuff. That's why there's still value there. That's why you can still find
Yeah,
value in it.
that's true. We reign supreme
Mm-hmm.
after all.
Hogan, stop.
So,
Oh, it's getting
so
very
what,
antsy.
what, so for our audience, lay
Mhm.
out your worldview. You said that you were, you studied philosophy and different worldviews, things of
Yeah.
that nature. So where are you at? Where did you land at? You're more like you said, the idealist, sort of non-dualist sort of thing, and so we got that. Is there anything a little
Mhm.
different than maybe say the Bernardo Kastrup approach or the Rupert Spira approach, things like that? Is anything that's outlined in your book? By the way, the book is called The Whole Whole,
Mhm.
and we can go through like some of the chapter structures and things like that. But if you want to
Right.
follow up on that question, like kind of outline the specifics of your idealistic views.
When it comes to idealism and the case for idealism, I don't depart from Kastrup too much at all. In fact, I sort of discovered Kastrup at a really opportune time. It was one of those instances that we kind of say when the student is ready, the teacher arrives. I'd been arguing
Mm-hmm.
non-duality in various different ways in the forums and such, and I suddenly discovered Bernardo Kastrup, and I was like, "Oh my God, there is somebody that's doing this in a much clearer way." And so I started to give my own versions of his case, along with the ideas of self-inquiry from the Eastern mysticism perspective. I find that's a great bipolar way of arriving at the thing. You can go the direct experiential route with or without mushrooms and stuff, or you can go the analytical route. It entirely depends on what appeals to you most, or you can do both, which is perfect because then you can actually experience it and then go into the case for it, the philosophical and empirical support. And there is enough of that I wouldn't say it's proof, but once you've got so many heuristics and arguments and facts and evidence that are all pointing in one direction, even if none of it by itself is conclusive, it creates a sense of you're not going to the point of beyond all reasonable doubt, but you are achieving a preponderance of evidence balance. There are enough
Mm-hmm.
things pointing in one direction to say, I'm not certain about this, but this seems to be the most plausible ontology. and that's where I'm at with it.
Exactly. Exactly. That makes a lot of sense. So with the book, so we'll go to
Mhm.
the book. Um,
Mm.
so what is this book? What is the purpose of your book? What is the idea that you're trying to convey?
Well, I think that the discourse goes around and round in a lot of circles. There's a lot of talking past one another. There's a lot of misunderstandings, a lot of straw manning, a lot of informal and formal fallacies. And what I'm mostly trying to do is move that forward, to find the common ground, expose the fallacies, and just have an impact on the discourse, a positive one, And ultimately, I do think non-duality does have positive consequences as well.
Hmm.
I mean, ethics wise, it's not an ought, it's just an is. However, it's a
Hmm.
special kind of is, because if you achieve this non-dual realization that we're all one, and that we're one with nature and the
Hmm.
world too, and with quote unquote God, if you want to use that language or not. All right. Uh, all all that's required on the ought front is a simple, gentle push towards self-love, and that's it. You know that song, "The Greatest Love of All," learning to love yourself. You need
Yes.
that, and you need the other song going, "You are everything, and everything is you." If you combine those two, then that's all you need. Because essentially, uh, look, you don't treat your neighbor badly if you love yourself and they are you. You don't treat the world
Yes.
badly if you love yourself and it's your body. So it impacts environmental considerations, it impacts intersocial things, interpsychic things as well. You stop thinking of yourself just as this poor little me and this collection of identities. I am this, I am that, etc. And it's not the world against
Right.
you anymore. The isolation is gone, the loneliness is gone. So it changes a lot. It, there's this idea that a philosophy is only as valuable as its consequences. You can
Hmm.
have all the parsimony in the world, all the coherence that you like, explanatory power, empirical adequacy, etc. But if it doesn't change lives, if it doesn't change the world, then what's the point? You're just spinning your wheels. You are just navel gazing or whatever. So there are consequences, and I don't get to that till about, I think, chapter 15 or 16, because I don't want the argument to be based on the consequences. I want to separate that. The argument is the argument. The consequences are the consequences. They're separate things, because otherwise, the logicians don't want you to talk about consequences at all, because they say, that's an appeal to consequences. That's a fallacy. But the pragmatists insist that you do. So the only way to satisfy both is to do them both, but do them separately. So you give the what and the why first. You give the case, and then you can move on to objections such as, yeah, but what's the point, in by focusing on the actual consequences.
Okay. So this, we've been talking like last night with our other co-host about objective morality. Does that
Mhm.
support? It sounds like that may support objective morality. Is that? Am I understanding that correctly?
I think it kind of does, yeah, but it needs more than just non-dualism. It needs that imperative towards self-love as well. if you
Oh
if you
yeah.
haven't got one or the other of those, if you haven't, no, I'm not getting an ought from an is. I'm adding an ought to an is. I'm adding the ought of
Mm-hmm.
self-love to the is realization of non-duality. So I'm not
Mm-hmm.
I'm not deriving one from the other. I'm adding the ought in to get the
Because it
ethical system.
collapses into the non-dual. Right. 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 Right.
It does.
Very
The
very easily.
non-duality is the is that simplifies the need for an ought. It means that you only need that one ought,
Okay. So
and
this
and
sounds
then
like more like a Sam
everything
Harris
else
kind
follows.
of. So it's sort of like a Sam Harris approach to non-dualism. It sounds like
No, I guess so.
where
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, because he's also a, objective moral. He believes in moral objective morals as well.
Mm.
So yeah, we went on yesterday about this, just going back and forth and trying to figure it out. And like we had our friend who's part of our community, Brooklyn Lou.
Mm.
He's really kind of trying to figure that out, and we're
Yeah,
we're trying to figure out the words, you know,
that's right.
because
Yeah.
on one hand I can agree on each side in their own perspective, but on the other end of it though, truth seems to be non-dual rather than dualistic, because then
Mhm.
it would be a semantic collapse, I think. So we're trying to figure out good ways to kind of resolve this issue, at least semantically, for the first step. Now, objective ethics, unfortunately, he can't join us. I know he'd have
Mm.
a whole lot to say about that, and he'd probably agree with you 100%. I think you guys are pretty much aligned on that. I'm just trying to figure out ways that we can talk about it. And Sophia, are you kind of leaning towards objective morality? I know we were talking about that after our live stream last night, and it seemed like you were more on objective ethics side on that issue, it seems like.
Yep. First of all, I think what Paul's talking about, what he's putting in his book, is beautiful actually, and I agree with it. And I definitely do believe that there is an objective morality, and that I don't know if I'm understanding it correctly though, because I gotta make sure, because y'all know I'm a little bit dumb, like I always say. And I was just wondering, does it mean that there is an ultimate truth, and at the end of the day, we can either align with that or not? Is that what that means? Is there an ultimate truth or a reality? And I feel like there has to be, because we all innately know not to do certain things or
Mm.
to want certain things. For one, we have a survival instinct, so we know consciousness wants to live and express itself and whatever. And we also know, for example, not to harm children because they're our future or whatever, and so we
Mhm.
have like these innate knowings, and I don't think that it's actually subjective, right? Even though a person could still very well go against that. But does that
Cool.
mean it's not an objective truth just because someone decided to say, I'm not going to listen to that?
Mm. Mhm. Mhm. So I have this particular aversion whenever I'm presented with an either or. I don't like them. I'm kind of greedy. If someone presents me with the either or, I look for a way to get both. So if someone wants to say morality has to be objective or subjective, I think, well, no, I like both actually. I think there's like an objective core and there's subjective fine tuning. So you get a bit of both in that, you know.
Mm.
And I think so that there are
Hmm.
some things
Can you
which just come
elaborate on that
from
a little bit?
yeah, there are some things that just come from the facts of life, that if you have this sense of self-love and the realization that all is one, so there is no other, right? Then morality forms out of that without any need for finger wagging or tablets with chiseled commandments on them. You know, the commandments are derived from the facts, but we can just go straight to the facts. We don't need the extra part and all of the rules and everything, because what that creates is the unfortunate situation where you've got a church that's the authority or a Bible that's the authority. And even in the Bible itself, it'll tell you, actually, read the Bible with your connection to the Holy Spirit intact. So it means there is an interpretive layer there. So you can look at things more symbologically, you can look at them less dogmatically, and derive some value from not just the Christian tradition, but from other traditions too. You don't necessarily have to view all of them as heathens and heretics and the wrong thinkers. They're just coming at the same thing from a different angle for a different people for in a different time. So the meditations of the Buddha will line up actually with the non-dual and with the self-love as well. Um, so yeah, I
Like the
resist the
teachings
sense
of
of either
Christ,
or.
for example. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that the objective stuff sort of falls out of it, but also
Yeah.
there is some subjectivity too in the finer details. So it's like you've got the tree is objective, but like the leaves and the fruits might be subjective. When it comes to the finer points of things. Like some cultures will think that it's rude to say thank you, but some cultures will think that it's rude to not say thank you.
Mm.
Okay. Now this is kind of like subjective ethics because it's culturally instantiated. They've got their reasons for saying that to say thank you is rude, because it's like a cheap way to achieve parity when someone's done you a solid, you know. But we've got our reasons too
What
for
you're
saying,
saying
well,
is,
actually saying thank you is a good thing.
so in other words, you're saying that basically in the way that we choose to align with objective reality can be subjective as far as how we execute that, right? Like, for example, here I go with my examples. Because I'm just trying to understand it. Like I can say, like you just said, in some cultures they say thank you, you don't need to say that. In other cultures they say, well, say thank you because that shows respect. Well, that one culture may say, well, it's already understood that we respect each other. We don't need this word to basically make that known. So in a way, we're doing the same thing. We're just doing it differently. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, in that specific point, that is what I'm saying. But to take a step back from that, it's a resistance of this idea that morality has to be one or the other, that it has to be all objective or all subjective. And just to say that, well, actually, no, some of it is just objective because it's based on general survival of the species and general solidarity with one's fellow great ape and all of this stuff. But when it comes to the finer details, parts of it are culturally relative. And something that's considered good in one culture won't be considered good in another. And you can't necessarily say that there's an objective truth to that. It's just what is acceptable in that society. So there is some subjective fine tuning, but the core of morality and ethics is kind of all oriented towards the good, towards love.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of see that because even when we look at evolution, like let's take naturalism, it seems like consciousness is favoring cooperation.
Yeah.
It seems like every time we start not to cooperate and we start to be a little more selfish, we die out. We don't survive. We don't flourish. All the things we want seem to be disrupted and dysfunctional, and it leads to sort of like some kind of uh, chaos. Like it just bottoms out, it spirals out into
Right.
it's entropy. It goes into entropy,
Yes.
and it seems like how some scientists say that systems like conscious systems, right? They hit this sweet spot in nature, in evolution, where consciousness arises or consciousness is able to express itself in this particular situation. And it's only going to last so long as consciousness keeps cooperating and providing order. When we're more orderly
But doesn't that,
and we Mhm.
but doesn't
Go ahead.
that kind of hint at the fact that there is an objective morality, you know?
That's what I'm saying. It's promoting. It seems like it's grounding itself into reality, and and it kind of goes back to what you said the other day. You really blew my mind the other day, Sophia, when you said, because we were talking about the problem of evil, remember? And you were saying,
Yeah.
I was saying, well, what about unnecessary evil? And then you would ask the question, well, what is unnecessary evil? If evil and good is all part of the same reality, and reality is necessary by definition, then how can you say there's such a thing as unnecessary evil? And this sort of gets back to the objective nature of morality and stuff like that, because those are the things that promote against the entropy. It sort of promotes order, and order seems to flow with the natural laws of evolution or nature, which wants to survive, it wants to thrive, it wants to figure out problem solving from the very bottom layers of nature all the way up to this meta-conscious sort of expression, if you will.
Mm. So
I
I
don't
don't know
know if
about
you.
evil, but I would say there's
Mhm.
unnecessary suffering.
Yes.
And I think that one of the reasons that promoting non-duality and idealism does have positive consequences is that an escape from identity does have an impact upon unnecessary suffering. We suffer more because we believe we are separate from the world and because we believe that we are these constructed identities, but we're not that. We're just
Mm.
life.
Well, the
We're
reason I would say it's not unnecessary suffering is because I just kind of, I guess I'm sort of a realist, you would call that. And if that's the current state of consciousness collectively, then,
mm-hmm,
that's just what it is. It's like
mm,
reality can only be what reality is. Now, that doesn't mean that consciousness is not forever evolving and that it can't be better in the future. So I would say we
mm,
could
mm-hmm,
align ourselves with that aspect of consciousness and move it forward in a more positive way, right? And help
mm. I think
in
you're
that
describing kind of
agenda,
like a
so to
rite of
speak.
passage.
But
You're describing a rite of passage there. We go through the valley, if you will, and that it's necessary to get through it,
yeah,
but it doesn't mean we can't get to somewhere
Mm.
better after we've gone through it. So it's a rite of passage.
exactly. Yeah, so that's why I don't really call it unnecessary suffering. I just say
Mm.
it is what it is. That's what
It
it
is,
is.
yeah,
But we
yeah. That's
can
very.
make it better.
You're combining acceptance and hope, which they don't naturally go together. Because to
Yeah,
have hope is to say that things can improve, but to have acceptance is to accept things as they are. But you can do both, which is possible, but it's a tricky maneuver. It's sort of like you've got to look at it as less of
it's
a
hard.
point
Yeah,
and more of a vector. A point is just where we are, but a vector is where we are and where we're going. It's going it's from
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of
A vector space. Yeah.
mhm,
it's kind of comes from a place of where I like to solve problems. So I can
mm,
focus on the problem, but I can only do that for so long. And then I'm like, okay, but what's the solution? We need to get to
mm,
the solution. The
yeah.
more we focus on the problem, the less we get into the solution. And that's kind of
Mhm,
where how I look at it. So it's not really unnecessary. Like even the bad things that I experienced,
yeah.
they molded and shaped me into the person that I am today. And I wouldn't be that person had I not experienced those. So was it really
Yeah.
unnecessary? Not really.
Mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's it's necessary for growth. Sorry, Scott.
Yeah. No worries, man.
Yeah.
I wrote that Substack article kind
Mm,
of after we had that conversation, and we were talking about the pendulum analog, where it seems like what happens is we start off in a place of hopes, dreams, meanings, positivity, and we're all ready to attack the world head on. But then when when the pendulum swings to the left, we start entering out of the world of consciousness and hope and meaning and psychology and all that, and we start getting into this other dimension or realm of reality, which is the physical world, the world of forms and patterns and things. And that's where the fire is, and that's where we walk through the fire, and we're like, God damn it, I'm getting burned here. And then you retreat,
mhm,
you kind of swing back, and you're like, what did I learn from that shit? What does it all mean? And then you kind of rebalance yourself, and then you swing back into the world of forms, and and then you encounter another catalyst of change, right? Another something else has hits you, and you sort of hopefully evolve into knowing how to solve those problems. So you swing back and you find meaning, but every time you swing back and forth, you're constantly refining yourself and becoming the new person. You're reborn,
mm,
and then there's people that just simply don't want to swing. They simply want to
mhm,
stay in the left. They just want to. I'm just going to be, I'm a lifelong Democrat or lifelong Republican. I'm going to go to work every day. I'm going to come home and bitch at my wife or husband or kids or whatever, and we're going to repeat that same pattern. And I know it's burning me, but what the fuck else you going to do about it? So let's just
Mhm.
stay in it and let's just live in this drama. Let's live in this trauma. And maybe, just maybe, get your kicks by making other people's life fucking miserable too. Maybe that's
Goodness,
maybe
yeah.
that's what they kind of concluded. And so they never really swing. They never really go back to, because a lot of these people don't really value consciousness. They don't value
Mm.
quote unquote spirituality. These people are highly hyper skeptical types, very sort of cynical
I think they don't
types,
value
and
sovereignty
they just stay in these patterns and they become abusive and toxic. Yeah, go ahead.
Mm.
because thinking for yourself, that's too hard. Like, because you got to make decisions and you're faced with obstacles. So it's easier to have someone feed you a program and how to think and operate. And I think it's yeah, you don't value consciousness because you don't even value your own mind, and you're just willing to let people tell you how to fucking be. And I think that's one of the biggest issue in our society as a whole, that it's just easier when someone else makes the decisions for you.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I'm interested in the comments that
yeah.
just popped up. There's a guy talking about he has the same opinion about there being subjective and objective within ethics and morality, but he views the picture the opposite way around to what I explained about, like, the
Mm-hmm.
objective core with the subjective fine tuning. He sees both components, but in the opposite configuration. And
Right.
I think it's just about how you build the metaphor, because we're,
Mm-hmm.
we're both looking at it metaphorically, really, by drawing a picture.
Well, that's all we have. Our minds are limited, and
Mm.
that's the whole dualistic um, life. We have to define things in terms of opposites, and where we fall in that whole that dichotomy can kind of dictate how we approach these sort of issues. And I guess your book does it go really in depth into those sort of issues, or is there
There's a
something else that
couple
you're
of
mainly?
chapters that deal with philosophy of language quite a bit. There's one early on, Why Call It God, which does it from that perspective. And then 7 is called Metaphors Be With You. And that's about not taking things literally, including religious narratives and scientific models as well. Because there are those who take both of those far too literally and end up with a skewed view that creates this all religion or all science like dichotomy. And actually, there's value available from both. And why not be
Hmm.
greedy? Why not be greedy? Why not take every piece of value that you can wherever you can get it from? That's the way I see it.
Well, what is your view on
Yeah, it's
ego?
just too rigid. It's like once you identify with,
Hmm. Very rigid.
sorry, there
What
must
is
be
your
a lag
view on
again.
the ego?
I was just saying, yeah,
Yeah, it is
it's
Well, I'm
lagging.
I'm I'm with I'm with the Buddhists and most of the spiritualists on this. The ego is a construct. So actually, the path to enlightenment very much involves disassociating oneself from all of that. So your name, your story, your background, all of this, that's a story, but it's not what you are. There's lots of different metaphors of ways of looking at it, like that you're the ocean in the drop. So
Hmm.
if there's only oneness, then anything that we label that's a part of that is just something oneness is doing. It's like Castrop describes it as like a whirlpool in water. You can identify the pattern. And what we are semi-stable patternings in the processes of the one source. But there's nothing to the whirlpool but the water. You can't just fish it out of the water. There'll be nothing of it there. It's something the water is doing. And in this analogy, it's like kind of cosmic waters. So the one is the reality, and anything that we say is like a quote unquote part of that. We're just chopping it up in our minds to make a model, and the limitation of that model is that it's constructed of parts. Actually, reality is more holistic than that. And yes, our language chops it up, our models chop it up.
Welcome to heaven, Joel.
Yeah. The kingdom is within, brother.
Yeah.
Be that. Just abide,
I see the
man.
ego as
Abide in the
I see
love.
the
Did I
ego
tell you
as
guys I'm a Buddhist priest nowadays? I
Oh,
got
okay.
myself ordained.
yeah,
I
I
know
see
anyone
that
can.
in
I
the
know
group.
anyone can do it, but I just thought it was worthwhile. I haven't printed out my certificate yet.
Oh man, I need to get one. I
Yeah,
definitely need to
totally,
get one.
man. And I
You
need to get a
know,
Substack account.
yeah, get a Substack. That's gonna help me get my credentials. I want to start like a, some kind of, um, because we're doing it. We're really pretty much doing it here on the uh, on the YouTube channels and everything. But
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to like officially start some sort of nonprofit, something community based, something where we can promote these ideas and do exactly what we do here. Just do it live and in person. Maybe possibly host events, different places, gather people together, make it really fun, make it very positive. So yeah, I'm all for that, man. But you were saying something about ego,
I just wanted
Sophia.
to, I wanted to answer, well, not answer, but add to what Paul was saying. I think the ego is definitely also necessary though for this experience because it's kind of like the survival mechanism to be able to get through this experience. And I see it kind of as a masculine energy that
Mhm.
anyone can embody, whether you're male and female, gender doesn't matter. I also want to reiterate because some people that are so-called like spiritual minded or whatever, or idealists, I've even seen, they're kind of nihilistic in their view. And oh, this whole experience doesn't matter because it's not even real. It's just an appearance and blah, 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 blah. And it's
Mm.
like from my LFM standpoint, I would say we need to be careful with that too, because obviously consciousness wants to express itself in
Mhm.
this physical way that it's doing things. And I think that what's more important is that we find a balance between the two worlds, so to speak, like us
Mhm.
mystics call it. And at the like, there is value in this experience, and we should also honor it. It's not just all about the the other side or the spiritual or whatever, but to realize that it's really all coming from a unified field. It can unify us and make a better experience. Once again, it's all
Mhm.
about making it better and
Yeah.
progressing it forward and honoring all aspects all at once in a way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's happening at once. Non-duality and duality is simultaneously existing all at once. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't quite phrase it that way. Well, I would replace the duality there with polarity, so that there are opposites in the play.
Hmm.
There
Yeah,
Hmm.
and
The
that
you could
polls.
say that. Yeah.
and that these are what
The
make
contrast.
the
Yeah.
manifest life differentiated, so that we do actually have an experience rather than like a kind of white noise of everything everywhere all at once. So there are polarities within the play, and that is the non-dual expressing itself to itself through itself as itself. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you can put it like that too, for real. Yeah.
God is more than a trinity. He's an infinity.
That's my
Indeed.
man, Paul.
I'm gonna have to go
Paul be
somewhere
getting
with
it.
this one. Okay, so I have
Paul be
this thing.
spitting.
Sorry, go on. What are you saying?
I was saying,
Did I
Paul,
miss it?
you be spitting.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool, man, cool. Um, right. So often there's these random, well, not random, but annoying questions that come up, such as like, why is there something rather than nothing? Which assumes that there being nothing is something coherent in the first place, which it
Right.
isn't, because for non-being to be is a contradiction.
Hmm.
So in actual fact, there's a philosopher that dealt with this quite a lot called Heidegger, and he said the very impossibility of non-being to be is a fact that guarantees being. So it's kind of like a cosmo non-voidism approach. So one of the things I like to do is like a little hobby. If I've been inspired by somebody's idea, and then I'm also inspired by someone else's idea, I try and play with them and see if I can get them to interrelate. So I combined this with some of Sheldrake's comments on the Trinity, where he started to talk about there's a ground of being, there's the manifest life, and there's the jam in the donut, the blanket of becoming, the dynamic horizon where couldness separates into isness and isn'tness. Okay, so it's like a threefold oneness, which creates this Trinitarian idea. So by combining all of this, I thought, well, it's Unitarian, it's Trinitarian, and it's Cosmo non-voidist. And I started to think, well, there must be a way of trying to get a catchy acronym out of this. Cosmo, Unitarian, non-voidist, Trinitarianism. I think it's going to have some marketing problems.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the penny to drop. I don't want to spell it out.
Yeah.
Shall I go through it again? Cosmo, Unitarian, non-voidist, Trinitarianism.
Wow.
Non-voidism being one word, so you don't put the V in there. It's a problematical acronym. Let's put it that way. It's not something you can say in polite conversation.
Well, I'm sure if I go to my local church and I go and challenge the pastor up there and use those kind of words, I think I'll immediately be removed.
Yeah. Quite.
I don't think they're gonna like that too much. What kind of demonic shit is this?
But also, it's another one of those instances of like, I think it's quite important to laugh at philosophy, to have fun with it. There's actually a long tradition here with like the Sufis and the Buddhists and all of that. But I get rid of the C word, indeed. There is something deeply spiritual about using humor in all of this, and sort of like treating it with a bit of a wink. Because things can get very in philosophy, and things can get very silly in comedy. But if you're combining the two, then maybe you can do something really cool.
Oh yeah. It's I used to be one of those guys that, I came from a fundamentalist Christian sort of background and Jehovah Witnesses and all of that. So debating, arguing, going to people's door, knocking on people's door and starting arguments with people first thing in the morning before they had their coffee. That was my thing, So, and then I moved into the atheist world, and then I just kind of transferred that energy over there. So I used to like to own the Christians and own the religious folks, and then I started growing up eventually, and I started realizing, you know what, this is just spinning my wheels. It's not helping anybody. It could even be a red flag of some sort of mental issue, emotional issues. I'm like, man, I need to check myself. Am I really a troll like that? Am I going through some? So then I decided to study Buddhism a little bit, get into meditation and find a little balance. It's kind of atheistic, so it fit well. And so then I learned the principle of unattachment and about doing good for others and being more of a force of good. And it kind of just shifted me. And then, all of that stuff sort of landed me where I'm at today with a more peaceful, non-dualistic, humanitarian kind of attitude and approach to it. And
I
so
think
I kind of rediscovered
very archetypal path. It's a very archetypal path. There's quite a lot of folks who split from fundamentalist religions and have like a heavy atheistic phase, and then we'll go out and try and find something to soften the edges a little, like Buddhism, and achieve a sense of balance that way. I mean, Buddhism is quite a lot about balance, isn't it? Like the middle way and all of those things.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, finding balance and all of that. So back to your book. So when is the do you have like an official release date in mind?
I wouldn't call it official. I've got like a soft target. I did want it to be January 9th. I think it's probably going to have to be a bit later than that now. A lot of things have been delayed. Like I said before, life is mental at the moment in more ways than one. But if I really step on the gas, and you know, nothing big gets in the way, like some all-encompassing festival season or something. Oh no, that's going to happen, isn't it? All right, okay. But yeah, I would like to think I can hit that target, but I don't know. I've been speaking to a few different publishers, and I haven't got entirely locked in as to which way I'm going to go. It's a route to publishing. There's this one company that were very interested, but they're actually promoting more of a product than a publishing deal. It's like a self-publishing thing. You pay them. It's not like they're going to
Oh,
give you an
yeah.
advance or anything. It's like, and it's the thing that's putting me off is it's the kind of thing that's actually maximally available for somebody who wants to do like a vanity press. So there doesn't necessarily have to be any actual objective value in the work that they want to put out there. It's just a personal project that they want to do. With me, I think it's a bit of both. You know, I do have a personal passion for it, but hopefully I'm not being too up myself to suggest that there's some value in what I'm trying to put out there as well. So yeah, it's a difficult one to decide on, really, because if you do go self-publishing, actually you retain more of the
Mm-hmm.
royalties of the thing,
Yep.
but you're taking on more of the risk as well, and you're not having a company that's necessarily going to be invested in the marketing side of things. You're basically going to have to pay for your own marketing and everything. So I think I would rather share the risk a little than reduce my monetary compensation
Right.
to make sure that I mean, there are companies out there that do this for a living. They know how best to market things. I would just be just lost, you know, in
Well,
that world.
well, it seems like by getting your feet wet, you're going to learn quite a bit about how this all works. And
Mm,
Sophia, she's working on her book, and I'm
mm,
sure maybe you guys can exchange information, link up, and maybe help each other. Maybe you can kind of show her the ropes and help her get published or help her get that stuff going. And if I had that, my vision was true, and I had this community, and I had the money to fly you over, it'd be a great opportunity to do like some book signings,
mm,
some speakings, events, and things like that. See, this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. I want to build a community here, and
mm,
I want
mm.
us all to kind of like cross promote each other. If we're,
Right.
we've got
Yeah.
a lot of smart people in this community.
It's the same as my
Our
vision with the Facebook group, the Universalism group. A
Yeah,
lot of groups will say no promotions allowed, but I specifically put a rule in there to say on topic promotions absolutely fine. So anything that's involved in the same kind of projects that's relevant, it's like, yeah, go for it. Use the group to establish connections and to. Sorry, I got distracted by the comment there. Oh, it's one of my main problems, distractibility. They're
yeah. I mean, it could be such a really fun thing to do. Yeah,
oh,
cross promotion is where it's at, man.
yeah, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and so is there any? I'll probably open it up for the audience. So what I'll do is unless you wanted to go into a little more details about either the book or the worldview or however, I
Well,
can start. I can put the link out here and see if anybody wants to share the stage and maybe throw some
yeah,
questions at you. Maybe
there
have
are
a
there are a few topics that the book does cover that we haven't spoken about. So
perfect.
I have a chapter on the divine feminine, which I feel that the patriarchal religions have really sort of left behind, and they've tried to very much paint divinity as a masculine place, that the feminine does not belong there, but it absolutely does. There is divinity and toxicity in both genders. There we hear a lot about toxic masculinity, but there's toxic femininity too. We hear a lot about the divine masculine, but actually there's the divine feminine as well. Another thing this chapter goes into is gender identity in a broader way, and how non-duality can alleviate some of the suffering there, because it's the sense that we're not our bodies. And that's the cause of a lot of the dysphoria in these cases, that there's a mismatch between the self-identity and the body. And that creates a lot of suffering and a lot of problems for people in the world. I think non-duality can help there.
I have a alternative view. Like what if it's not necessarily a mismatch? What if it's just that we all recognize these energies within us, masculine and feminine? I mean, even on a biological level, we have testosterone and estrogen.
Yeah.
And what if it's just that, some people just don't fit the stereotypical gender role because like they're more masculine or more feminine? Because like, I mean, at the end of the day, how we play around with those energies, that's your own damn business. And a lot of us, I don't think, have much control over that. Like, I can't help that I got masculinity in me more than other women. And I know that upsets a lot of men, but I mean, I am what I am. And so
blame your star signs.
what if the problem I'm sad. You already know
Yeah,
that. I'm a
I know.
fire sign.
I'm saying you can blame it. You can blame your star sign for the masculinity that's in your archetype.
For
Right?
real, yeah. Like,
You got
I
that.
can't
You
help
got
it.
that.
I bring the
That
fire,
fire.
man.
Yeah, you're born under fire. There's, you can't help but
Well,
have
so
that. I mean, if you, yeah, exactly. You know, like if you were born
but I was
under
gonna say,
Libra, you'd have a bit more gender balance in your archetype, because for the Libra you've got the Venus ruler and the masculinity of the air. And so there's balance in that. But Sagittarius is very masculine, very like energetic, dynamic, day force fire sign. So yeah, blame it on that.
yeah. But I mean, I do have my Taurus. I do have Taurus in my moon, and so Taurus kind of keeps me stable, because like, good God, without my Taurus, I would be so nutty. Like, I'm already nutty, but thank God for my Taurus earth grounding energy. But I was just gonna say, like, what if yeah, I would completely probably lose touch with reality, man. I know that. But thank God I have my Taurus energy to ground me when I need to be grounded. But I was just gonna say, what about, like, have you ever thought of that it might be societal pressure that makes people feel that they are mismatched because they're just not really allowed to be who they are and express themselves in a more non-conforming way? So like, if society says, it's kind of how they do it in the Middle East. If society says, oh, well, you can't be a feminine man or you can't be a homosexual man, that's just not okay. But to make it okay, we're gonna force you into the opposite gender. You know what I'm saying? And we're gonna force you into that. Obviously, there's a mismatch going on here. And once you transition and become the other sex, it's like they just have to fit you into the box of one or the other. And society has a real problem with divergent people who just do not fit into that. And I think that has mainly to do with why people are fast-tracked down that road to transition, and why a lot of people after they transition don't really get the relief that they thought they would. And then you see in turn a lot of detransitioning going on. So I think it could be very healthy to just, as a society, accept that people express themselves the way that they do, and it doesn't necessarily have to fit into a box.
Sophia, would I be right in saying that what you're saying is it's already okay? It's already okay to be as you are, and if you've got some masculinity, if you've got some femininity, if you're fluid in those dynamics, that's also okay. It's all already okay. There's no need to obey these pigeonhole boxes and stereotypes and live up to societal expectations of being a man or being a woman.
That's not what Trump said.
Of course,
the
spiritual guru.
The masculinity that is in me, the way I see it, the masculinity that's within me. it has protected me. It has made me strong. It has made me be able to adapt to harsh environments. And you quite frankly, I was tired of getting my ass beat. I'm gonna beat your ass back. So it is what it is.
That's awesome.
Yeah, well, Sophia, let me tell you something. Let me show you something.
He about
You
to
don't
say,
want to get in front
he
of
about to
these.
say some crazy shit. I'm not scared of
You
you
don't want to get
at
in front
all.
You shouldn't be.
Well, I
Scott
think
does not have a bad bone in his body.
I've
No.
already shown I'm in touch with my feminine side. I can speak about astrology. That's a typical.
Yeah.
That's not a stereotypical male place to go to even have any kind of interest in that. And I think it's important to mention that I'm not at all claiming astrology as a science. It's more of an interpretive art form. It's more that I don't necessarily believe in the horoscope thing of like 1 in 12 people is going to have this day. But when it comes to the personal archetypal energies, there's something in that. I swear, it just the patterns are uncanny. There has to be.
Yeah.
There has to be something. I don't know the mechanism, but like maybe folks should do more science on it and then find that there is actually some science behind it.
In the tarot, Sophia does the tarot, and she's gonna kind of help me learn more about that because I'm really interested to understand how all that works and the patterns, like you said. I just
Yeah.
need to get some cards and play around with it and see what's going on. Because
I
I'm my
I
own
don't see those
scientist.
kind of things. I don't see those kind of things as woo or nothing. I think it's just everything that we experience is just a reflection of consciousness. So if you do the tarot, for example, you're not really doing anything except for the cards reflect something back to you that you already know. And it reflects it back to you symbolically through pictures. And then you interpret it based on what you already know, what's already there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's always that infinite potential. And it's just how the unconscious and the subconscious interacts at all times with one another. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like my I was talking to my cat this morning, and he told
As you
and he
do.
told me I was nothing but a 6 foot tall can opener. What does that mean?
What it means is that in a
It's
cat's
just,
eyes, all things belong to
never
cats.
get enough love around here. That's right. I think cats are
My dog
aliens.
keeps telling me I'm wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
We should think of ourselves as our dogs see us, not as our cats see us.
Yeah. Cats
Well,
can be
I got a
assholes.
dog and I got a cat,
Yeah.
and
That's
they
good
get
balance.
along.
Yeah.
Mm.
Wow. So much for all those cartoons, huh?
Yeah. And the stereotype is always the wrong way round. It's always in real life. It's the cats putting the dogs in their place. Let's face it. They've got sharper claws. They're quicker.
Oh yeah,
They're more aggressive.
I've seen
Generally,
that. I've seen that in
you
action.
get very aggressive dogs, but on average, cats are more aggressive.
Oh yeah, cats are highly evolved creatures, man. They've got like perfect balance, and their spines are kind of flexible. They can
Cats don't
jump
really
off of
trust
stuff.
anybody. They have a big defense mechanism. I don't think that they're necessarily more aggressive. It's just that they see a dog, that dog's bigger, potentially could harm them, and they are very proactive about protecting themselves, so to speak.
Yeah, so protective rather than aggressive. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Hell yeah, man. So, anything else about the book that we should know about before it gets released that we can promote?
I deal a lot with materialist objections, and there's one in particular that I'd like to draw focus to, which is that emergentists love this thing of like they'll draw attention to all of the correlations as if that's evidence. And then when you point out to, well, correlations don't equal causation unless you want to say ice cream sales cause shark attacks.
Mm-hmm.
However, where they'll go to next is, oh no, but we've got evidence of causation, and here, look at all these interactions, right? If you get hit on the head with a baseball bat, if you take a drink, if you have brain damage, these interactions, they show that the physical has an impact on the mental. So the physical, we've got evidence of causation, as an arrow of causation there, and it's complete rubbish. All you've
Mm-hmm.
got evidence of is a system interacting with another system. That's if you don't make any metaphysical assumptions at all. Systems interact with other systems. Well, big whoop. That doesn't tell you anything. Now, you can plug in any metaphysical assumption you want to those interactions. An idealist could come along and say, well, the baseball bat is a process in consciousness, the brain is a process in consciousness, processes in consciousness interact with one another. Therefore, there's an effect of what happens when these processes in consciousness impinge on one another. The materialist can come along and say, well, no, the baseball bat is a physical system, the brain is a physical system, they interact, and therefore, so the conclusion that you get out of it is entirely dependent on your initial starting assumptions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's called begging the
Mm-hmm.
question. That's called circular reasoning. There's no actual evidence there whatsoever. What you have evidence for is interactions, systems interact, and the only way to get any kind of metaphysical conclusion out of it is to assume what you're trying to derive. So it's one of these very popular, problematic pretensions of evidence that materialist emergentists think that they've got to really kill idealism with. You know, it's like, oh, we've got all of this evidence. No, that's not. That's evidence of systems interacting. It's got no kind of metaphysical impact whatsoever. And I like to kind of point that out to people because a lot of people miss it. Forrest Valkai misses it. You did a video the
One
other day
thing that
reviewing. You reviewed, didn't you? Forrest
yeah,
Valkai versus an idealist. And
yeah,
I put
that's
in the
right.
chat, I was like, I know where he's going next. I'm telling you where he's going
Mm-hmm.
next. He's going to beg the question. And he,
Yep.
like
I saw that.
clockwork, that's what he did. And it's one of the, I call it a mistake only smart people
Exactly.
make. You have to have a certain level of education to actually make this mistake. But you also have to be missing the point.
Yeah.
You also have to be begging the question. Now, what makes it so subtle and pernicious is it's such a regular assumption that we're physical beings in a physical world and all these things are physical systems that
Mm-hmm.
the assumption goes unnoticed. It goes under the radar. Nobody even notices that they're plugging that in order to get the evidence out. But they are. They're not suspending their assumptions in order to look objectively to see whether they can derive them. They're keeping them intact. They're plugging them into the observations, and the conclusion comes out. It's like, well, garbage in, garbage out. Sorry.
And one of the things I notice is that all of these things are just kind of like identity theories. So it's like consciousness is everything else except what it is. It's this.
Yeah.
Consciousness isn't consciousness. It's this. It's that. But they don't understand that the this and the that is what's inside your consciousness as a content. So you can't
Yep.
explain the consciousness through the objects that are housed in the consciousness, so to speak. Like, it's kind of circular. It's like, and they're all identity theories, and except for idealism. Idealism is the one thing that starts with consciousness. So it's totally the foundational sort of bedrock of that metaphysic. Now, Paul asked, related to that, do you conclude cause and effect between what you call processes and consciousness in the things we call physical objects?
Right. I don't believe in the ontological reality of the things that we call physical objects. I believe that calling them that is a component of a model, either a colloquial model where we just identify the patterns that emerge in consciousness and we name them, or in like a more scientific model where we're looking at things as if they're constructed of component parts. So yeah, there is a relationship between the processes and consciousness and the modulations in awareness that we label as physical objects, but it's not because there are actually physical objects. Physical objects are part of an experience. So do I see them as caused? Well, yeah, I see that the consciousness interacting with itself produces something on the screen of perception which speaks to us in the language of physicality. So there is a relationship between the noumena and the phenomena.
Mm-hmm.
There is a correlation between the noumena and the phenomena. So conscious perturbations, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
are what result in those appearances. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there's absolutely something that causes something. It's the reality causing the appearance through the mechanism of perception.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Um, and yeah, I agree with you. It really, how we start off, and it was kind of like what we were talking about last night with Lou, is that your starting point is either matter or your starting point is the consciousness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if we start, and all we can really do is kind of do a comparison, like an internal critique.
Mm.
We can do like we can take the principles of uh, what constitutes a good metaphysic, and part of
Mm.
that would include parsimony. Part of that would include explanatory power
Yeah.
and lack of contradiction. And
Mm-hmm.
so when we look at matter, we understand that matter is sort of an abstraction. So it's an
Yeah.
abstraction within consciousness itself. So using the abstraction as the starting point to explain the field of perception is just kind of ass backwards. It's back
Yep.
assward. And
Oh yeah. There
so
had
we
to be
get in.
something to abstract it from.
Right, right. So it never gets off the ground properly, in my view.
Mm.
Um, and then, if you want to go deep, dig deep into the scientific thing, you can kind of go the Donald Hoffman route and say,
Mm.
well, matter kind of collapses at 10 to the minus 33 centimeters. And at that negative, measurement, um, there's nothing to measure. It sort of stops being the thing that you are defining it as. And
Mm.
so, and that even is within the conscious measurement, the observer problem and everything like that. And so, how do you kind of reconcile that on the same materialism that you, under your own model, says collapses and doesn't no longer exist? It has no standalone existence. So, there
Mhm.
seems to be a tension there that doesn't seem to be resolved. And of course, we got the hard problem of consciousness on top of all that. So, yeah, it's just, for me, it's just more parsimonious just to not try to include all these abstractions to explain the abstraction.
Yeah, we're largely singing to the choir with each other, aren't we, on this primacy of consciousness thing?
Oh, of course. We like to beat dead horses. They deserve it.
No, I just mean eh, it's probably more productive when you've got somebody that actually doesn't think that, and that they will bring in the challenges, and then you can inspire your ways around those challenges, and sort of like come to a mutual understanding through the friction there. But between you and I, we pretty much think the same thing, so there's hardly any friction. Oh, I know Joel's going to want to hold my feet to the fire on parsimony, so I'll just I'll get in ahead of the game here and say that yes, parsimony is a heuristic. It's not
Hmm.
a final arbiter. It's
That's
it's
right.
one it's one of several pointers that, if they're all pointing in the same direction, should be taken seriously. But it's a case of if all else is equal.
Yes, and we were talking about this last night, and I fully admit, like, I think I used the example of fluid dynamics. Like,
Mm,
before that theory of um, fluid dynamics was, fully understood, It used to be the most parsimonious explanation was, look,
Yeah.
water's made of water molecules, and those water molecules flow in this direction. That explains why the water flows in that direction. That's the most parsimonious explanation for the flow of water. But then, as it turns out, actually, that's not true at all. There's so many factors. There's the hydraulics, and the water molecules are actually all over the place. They don't really flow in one
Mm.
direction, really. And so it's not that. So it turns out that reality isn't as parsimonious as we thought, but that's missing the point, I think, because
Yeah.
we're not really talking about measurements and things that we can actually discover. We're talking metaphysics.
Yeah.
Metaphysics actually means after physics. So
Hmm.
the only way to really approach a good, or at least a good way to approach a hypothetical model is through applying parsimony, because what you're doing there is you're trying to make the least amount
Yeah.
of assumptions, because you don't want to
That's
set
right.
up points of failure for yourself. Let's add in the extras when we get to that, when we have to.
Let me
It
see if I
worked
can,
for fluid
I can do a
dynamics.
nutshell. Let me see if I can do a
Yep,
nutshell thing with this, right? It's not
sure.
necessarily about simplicity. I mean, it is about simplicity to a certain extent, but also when you're doing metaphysics,
Hello,
it's
Robin
about
Hood.
playing in the grays. All right. We don't have absolute answers, but that doesn't mean that we have to give up and just go straight to agnosticism and just say we can't rank order our speculations. We absolutely can. We've got a whole discipline dedicated to doing it. So when all else is equal, the theory that makes less shit up is preferable.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
don't want to make up more shit than you need to explain what you've got to explain.
Yeah, it's like explaining one mystery in terms of other
Yeah,
mysteries.
why invent more stuff than you need to explain things? That is simply it. It's like, how much do you need to fabricate in order for your theory to work? Do you have to come up with hidden variables and hidden worlds and all of this complex stuff and have the hard problem of consciousness and all of these problems, right? Do you have to do that? Well, it turns out no, you don't. There's more parsimonious explanations. It doesn't mean more parsimonious explanations are true. It just means that, like, you don't need to add the extras. You don't need to add more commitments than you need to. So it's Occam's
That's
razor,
right.
you know.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
case of
Occam's razor.
do you want to multiply entities beyond necessity, or do you want to say, well, no, actually, all things being equal, it's more likely that the theory that doesn't make up more
Well, see,
is
the
better, more
reason
plausible.
you see the reason why gravity does what it does is because those fairies out there are pushing, they're pushing space into the matter. See, that's how it
You're
works.
making
See.
And the
that's
flying
the kind of
spaghetti
thing that
monster,
I've
of
been
course.
trying
Let's
to
not
that I,
forget that.
Go ahead, Sophia.
that's the kind of thing where I want to give Joel the pushback, because he says when you're talking about all these metaphysical claims, you're talking about untestable explanations.
Mm.
And it's like, how do you test consciousness, in the way that he's talking about? Sometimes we have to make, or we do that. We do that in science. We make logical inferences as well, I just want
Mhm.
to point that out.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good point, because again, it just goes back to parsimony when you do any kind of modeling or framing. And again,
Yeah,
metaphysics is after physics, so it's not really something that's even in principle able to be scientifically tested. I mean, science would be the wrong tool for
Mm.
that. So we're talking about metaphysics or slash
exactly.
philosophy, and you don't,
Joel, I
you know,
think, has the attitude of an engineer. I think what he wants is precise, absolute answers. But he's
yeah,
bringing that attitude to a domain where he's not going to get that.
No,
So
right,
it's not gonna
unfortunately,
happen.
no.
he thinks a lot like an engineer, but he's interested in metaphysics. So it's got there's this odd kind of problem that he's presenting himself with. He
In
wants
other
everything to
words,
be kind of
in other words,
Popperian and
Joel, you
you know
can't be a mechanic and think that you're gonna be some person in a hospital operating on someone's body. You're a mechanic.
Yeah.
You see
Yeah.
what I'm saying? You can't do it. You can't do it. It doesn't work. The only way it will work is if you open yourself up to that other field, and then you can learn how to be a doctor. But you're not a doctor. You're a mechanic.
Well, you know, metaphysics is they actually have you know, you can get a PhD in metaphysics. You know, you can get, you know, you can go to academia and study it. And so it's a well-defined sort of approaches, and parsimony absolutely is part of metaphysics, as it turns out. So
Yeah.
Joel says that's why parsimony doesn't apply. And I guess what I'm saying, I guess what I would ask is citations, because everything I've ever read about that points directly to parsimony. That's the whole Bernardo Kastrup claim, is that, you know, if we're going to be consistent with academia and use parsimony, then let's look at that. Then let's see which one is more parsimonious. And that's why he falls on the side of that particular metaphysics. So, but, you know, Joel says, haha, I'm just a guy learning about these things, and all you have to do is look up parsimony to see it's about hypothesis. No, it is absolutely about hypothesis, but look up also metaphysics. Yep. Believe me, I wouldn't have said all that if I didn't think I was right about that, because I'm looking right at it. I wish I could share my screen, but my connection's so bad, I can't share this article on that. So, yeah, parsimony is,
He wants to
I
post the
think,
link too.
huh?
He
Yeah,
said,
you
"You
can
want
go.
me to post the link?"
Yeah, just you can even pull up to be fast about it. Pull up Chat GPT and just ask the question: is parsimony part of a good metaphysical argument? Does that apply to a good metaphysical argument? And it will tell you.
It certainly isn't if it's on its own.
See, I can't
You know,
even
if
keep another.
all you have
I
is conceptual parsimony,
just to let Joel
then
know, right now I'm having a little issue.
right.
Yeah, I can't really post up stuff in the group right now because for some reason every time I try to open a tab, my stuff starts freezing. So it's because of this stupid StreamYard cloning thing it started doing. Is this beta thing that they're trying out where it's making dual um, streams, and if I try to close one, it's just going to shut down both of them, and I don't want to risk doing that. So after the show, though, I'm going to look at it and see how I can just turn that feature off somehow. It's some kind of new beta thing they're doing.
Yeah, I've got two windows as well, so I don't know what's going on there.
But he says, please use a reliable reference, not an AI. Okay. So yeah, you can pull up Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy if that's.
And you can also ask AI to give you its sources.
Yeah, its sources. Yep, true.
So
It'll
you
spit them
will
out.
have access. You'll have access to those.
Yeah, because actually, this is our overlords, anyways. This AI. We don't tell it what to do. It tells us what to do. Okay.
That's pretty much the size of it, or will be
But
at some point.
I'm gonna go ahead and share a link in case someone wants. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and post up the stage link here, backstage link. So if you guys want to jump on and join the stage and ask questions, if we can get that going, that's fine. Meanwhile, I'm gonna go get me a drink. I gotta go get my I gotta go drink my rum and coke. Hold on, I'll be back.
Oh, does that mean I've got time to make a cup of tea? You're gasping for a cup of tea.
Well, if you go get you go get your cup of tea first. I don't want to leave Sophia by herself on the stream.
Oh yeah, good point. No. I'll wait. You do yours.
Oh, okay. I'll be right back, man. I'll be right back. I promise.
Yeah. Yeah. So you say you're writing a book too? Is that on the
Yes,
LFM?
I am. Two of them, actually. Well, yeah, one of them is gonna be like my life story, kind of like just about how I arrived where I'm at and how I became the kind of person that I am. And then I am gonna go into my elephant model. And then the other one is about a theory that I have, and it's gonna be called the story of Cain and Abel that has never been told correctly.
Oh, okay. Okay. Heavy. I like that. I like the sound of that.
Kind of, sort of. The one about Cain and Abel is basically, just to give you a little hint, because I'm still working on it, but it's kind of tying in evolution into the whole idealism concept.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
That sounds like it's going to be really interesting work.
I just got to find the time to do it between these shows and life, and I'm halfway there, I would say.
Yeah.
But it's coming along.
Yeah. So with the book I'm writing, every chapter is at least started. They're all at least halfway done. In fact, there's most of them are at least sort of 85 to 90% of the way. There's only a few that are about 2/3 of the way done. So in terms of actual progress on the manuscript itself, I'd say it's about somewhere between 2/3 and 3/4 finished. Which
Okay, well, that's very good progress. We
it's
should
taken
be
just
seeing it soon,
under a
then.
year. It's taken just under a year to get it this far. And
Cool.
yeah, I'm quite excited about it, really, but it's also a bit unnerving, isn't it? Like going into the unknown with stuff.
Yeah, it is, but I don't know. For the first time in my life, I'm kind of in a position where I can kind of explore myself and my own potential. When you're caught up in this grinding society where it's all about the grind, it's like you
Survival
don't
mode.
really have time to, yeah. And I've been in survival mode for so long, and it's like, no, I need to get back in touch with who I am and embrace my own potential for a while. And, even though I may make less and now I'm a poor bitch, but it's kind of worth it.
Yeah, I mean, philosophical authorship. It's not a get rich quick scheme, but it might be a get less poor slowly.
No, I mean, it's not that I'm even trying to get rich. I just want to explore my own potential and just be
Yeah,
me for a while and not just be caught up in survival mode, even if that means that I have to live a life that's less, with less money. If that's
it doesn't
if
hurt to
that's
get
the
paid for.
sacrifice I gotta,
So
yeah.
it doesn't
I
hurt
mean,
to
it
get
would
paid.
help. You never know. You never know. It's
It's
like
not a bad
taking
thing.
chances, but I'm okay. Yeah, I'm okay with either or because I'm a very simple person and I don't really need luxury anyway. So
Right.
as long as I have my essentials, I'm happy. So if something comes
Hey,
of it,
Nell, welcome to
financially speaking,
the stage.
Hey guys.
hello.
Hello there. You look pretty cosmic.
Thank you.
So you are the universe.
I do have a cosmic perspective, so
Super duper.
Welcome back. Long time no see.
It's good to be
Long
back
time.
with you guys.
Glad to see you, brother. Glad you came to service today.
So I'm going to go take my break now. I'll be back shortly.
Okay.
All these alcoholics on this channel can't go
It's
without a drink
tea.
for an hour.
It's tea.
Is that what you kids call it these days?
Not that kind of tea now.
Yeah, I wish I had some quote unquote tea. Mm. How's it going, Caleb? How you been, man? Or
So
Nell? I'm sorry.
what are your thoughts so far, now?
My thoughts.
Hmm.
Oh, and it's
Yeah,
all right, Scott. I
what
know
you
it's
think so
gonna.
far? Have you been watching?
Yeah, and it's all right, Scott. It's gonna. I know it's gonna take getting some used to. So
Yeah, but it's good you got the name there, so it just a
yeah.
reminder.
Hmm.
Yeah, it helps. Because I recognized your voice right away, and I'm like, okay, I know who that is. But
Oh yeah, no,
I
I'm.
knew what's up.
It's gonna. It's probably gonna be a little bit before I start transitioning. So yeah,
Hmm.
but no,
That's all.
I've really been enjoying the conversation. I wanted to talk to Paul about his book on the part considering gender, considering what I'm going through. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can't wait to read that book, man.
yeah, his whole I know.
Hmm. The
It's so
glory
hard for
hole.
me to say whole. Only Paul would name it that. I swear to God.
I love Paul, man.
Yeah, he's pretty cool.
No, I
Hmm.
just
I love all y'all.
Hmm. I really do.
no, I just well, I'll wait till Paul gets back. So
Even
Okay.
Joel.
Hmm.
British and their tea. No.
The richest. It's tea time.
He's getting his spot of tea.
His little tea. He should have a little teacup. You know, like those little etiquette teacups. And Joel is
God,
sending
you
us
sound like
love
you
back.
eating.
Yeah, man, I'm starving to death, man. I haven't eaten all day. We've been recording shows and doing podcasts all day. I forgot to
All
attend to my
morning.
little belly. I have to attend to my fat belly, man.
Yeah,
Thing.
can't neglect yourself there.
No. No.
Yeah, it just seems like everybody's been going through some serious changes, man. We all been going through shit, and I ain't
Hmm.
gonna lie, it's been hard going through all these different emotional states. And man, it's just like I need a break. Like, what the fuck? I was just sitting over here and doing all this emotional work and being faced with it all, and no one came to rescue me. And it's just like I need a break. So yeah, doing these shows and having these conversations, it really helps. And I really appreciate all you guys. And yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. I'm an emotional wreck
Hmm.
at the moment, and this helps a lot. Um, Helps me stay grounded and stuff like that. So yeah, I just want to say that I'm just grateful, even though I'm going through a lot of crap.
Changes.
No, I feel that, especially now that I'm just whew, dealing with
You've
all this anxiety.
you've really gone through some changes,
Mm.
Neil.
Yeah.
That's for
Yeah,
sure.
anxiety has definitely been part of my thing too. I ain't gonna lie. So yeah.
I can't even
We're
sleep at night anymore. I'm going off like 2 hours sleep. Thing is, in the last 2 months, in the space of 2 months, I lost a good job. I lost my car because it got blowed up. Hopefully that'll get resolved somehow. Hopefully, I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Got scammed out of 3 grand, over 3 grand. Um, just everything's just going to shit, man.
dang.
But you know what?
Yeah,
I'm
it's like
still here.
I welcome changes, but why they gotta be so brutal? Like,
Hmm.
Yeah,
can we do it a
we're
little more gradually?
but we're here for each other. So
Hmm.
Yes, and that's what I'm grateful for.
All I can ask is if you people would just use lube next time. If you can do that, that's good enough. I mean, just use lube next time.
Well,
That
next
Luger
I think I
doing
can
shit
walk
anymore.
anymore.
next time, Scott, you need to give me $3,000, okay?
Right, you could have put that to a way better cause.
Yeah. For real.
I know
Wow.
I know a Nigerian prince. You just need to give me your bank account information.
Hmm. For real. I'm so desperate I might go to him and see if there's any possibility he might be able to hook a brother up.
I think that we're just all kind of being challenged to really truly stand in our own sovereignty and our own path. And a lot of
Right.
times, before that, it was like, I don't know, your strength being tested in a way. Like in my case, it was more like a financial exploitation situation. And I had to ask myself, am I going to put up with disrespect just to be financially straight? And I came to the conclusion that hell no. And then when it all fell apart, I was like, shit, did I make the right choice? And I got all scared and, I felt like everything's going to fall apart and everything kind of did. But then I also found my own strength again and was able to tap back into that and remember who the fuck I am. You know what I mean? So I think we're all kind of going through these changes that challenge us to stand our ground in our own sovereignty, if that makes any sense. Because at the end of the day, that's what you need to get you through this life. You know what I mean? Codependency is just, it's an illusion of security. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is, man, and it breeds toxicity and resentments,
Yes.
which leads to violence. And yeah, people, you got to remember, we're all just apes on this planet. Even us, we're apes. And you know how apes are.
Yeah.
They're violent, they're territorial, they're egotistical, they're rapey.
Yeah.
They're all kinds of shit, man. And I don't like apes,
That
but
word is so
I'm saying that
listening.
as an ape myself.
Yeah.
Have you looked into bonobos though? They're much more
Yeah,
chill.
they're a little better. Yeah, they're. I think they got it together, man.
Yeah.
We're more like those Neanderthals, man. We're somehow those Neanderthals still got in our system. I think because they raped us. So
And actually, we are genetically closer to bonobos than we are to chimpanzees. For a long time, it was thought chimpanzees are our closest cousin, but it's actually the bonobo.
really,
Yeah, we're
oh,
closer.
okay,
We're
okay. Well,
actually closer
bonobos are
genetically.
cool though. But
Yeah,
bonobos, are they territorial though and stuff?
hardly at all. I mean,
Yeah, they seem very docile.
they're not entirely pacifist. They are chill.
Well, we're not entirely pacifists at all. Like
Absolutely. No.
we're warlike creatures.
Mhm.
It's like, the reason we don't give weapons and nuclear bombs to these great apes and shit is because we know they'll fucking blow everything up, those motherfuckers. But we're the same way though. It's like if anybody's gonna blow this planet up, it's gonna be us.
The applications to which we put our technologies are exactly the same as the applications to which we put our religions. It's human motivation behind both. They're just separate areas of human endeavor. And we get the religions we deserve, we get the technologies we deserve, and all of this stuff because it's what our nature is that directs us to do what we do.
Hmm.
And it's not all bad, but it's not all good either.
I mean, some of us are cannibalists, man. Some of us go out and eat each other like we eat fellow humans, like especially some of those tribes off the coast of Africa, like those island and especially those guys off the coast of India. I think some
Right.
Christian tried to go over there and convert those apes over, and they ended up fucking mauling his ass to death.
They converted him instead into compost.
Yeah, they converted him to dust. Yeah, it's crazy, man. Mm.
So
Yeah,
what's
y'all
the
keep
vibe? We
going.
debating here? We discussing? What did I miss as well?
I'm feeding my face right now, so y'all go for it, man. I'll be done in a minute.
I can
don't know,
suggest a
I've been
debate topic.
talking since 8 o'clock this morning, and I don't even know what else to talk about. I think I'm kind of talked out for today, so I may actually bounce here in a minute.
But
Um,
Sophia, do you have any strong opinions on whether or not Die Hard is a Christmas film? Because we're coming up to the season now. That's
what
going to
is
start soon.
Die Hard with what's his face? What's his
Bruce
name
Willis?
again?
Bruce Willis?
Yeah. You talking about that?
Yeah. Have you never heard the debate? Is it a Christmas film? Or movie, I should say, for you guys? Is Die Hard a Christmas film? Movie? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that. Mm-hmm.
I've never heard that debate, and I've seen that movie, but it's so long ago, and I didn't speak English that well yet, so I barely remember it. I just remember it was kind of an action movie. Was Steven Seagal in it too, or something?
No, Bruce.
That was with.
I think you're spot on. It's an action movie. Absolutely, it's Christmassy.
Yeah,
it's set at Christmas time.
I mean,
it is very Christmassy, but I wouldn't say it's a Christmas film. And I think that the difference is the Hallmark Channel, the Christmas movie channel. You won't find Die Hard on there. What you'll find on there is a specific brand of feel-good B movie with a romantic plot, and everything will be well in the end. But Die Hard will be on the action channel. They'll play it at Christmas for sure, but it's Christmassy, not a Christmas film, in my opinion. That's where I stand on it. I
watch during Christmas that I recommend. I recommend Russian and Czech fairy tales. They're awesome. Ooh, that's what I do. Okay. They're very, very nice. They're so magical. That's what I do during Christmas. I got my little light going through the house, my little tree, and then I just binge watch Czech and Russian fairy tales translated to German.
Oh, okay. Our Christmas.
Oh, go ahead, Neil.
I said our Christmas tradition is to watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Those are our Christmas movies.
Nice.
Oh, I like that.
I mean, they're dope too.
Yeah, they're fire, man.
Yeah.
Not too long ago, we actually watched that, all of them.
Extended edition.
Have you ever dressed up like Santa Claus and then broken people's house and stole all their presents? That's fun. I think that's what I'll do.
The anti-Santa.
Was that on Friday too?
What the heck is Joel saying? Joel, are you still here? You said Sophia was rooting for Source. What you mean?
I think the whole tradition is so unnatural. It would be much more natural to have like a hibernation festival than it would to this thing where like we're all supposed to be so active and social and going out and buying presents and all of this stuff. It's like for that time of year, no. The better thing, the more natural festival would just be it's just all about hibernation.
Well, look, the other day we had a really good experience. Objective Ethics opened up a room on Free for Talk, and we actually spent like 6 hours talking to people about non-dualism, idealism. We had a lot of Muslims come in and skeptics come in, and they really enjoyed the conversation. And a lot of them, we got 8 new subscribers on the channel from it. So it was a really, really great conversation. Yeah, Joel just joined us. So
hey,
what's happening?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Joel.
What's up,
What's
Joel?
up, Joe?
You still painting today, or are you taking a break?
Oh
from
yeah,
that?
I'm painting. I'm painting, man. I gotta paint.
Yeah,
take a day
get
off.
that house ready. Ain't no time to be
What I've
taking
been
no
doing
day
on my
off.
day off. Yeah.
Yeah.
I paint, therefore I am.
You get a day off when we die. Yeah, we'll have enough days off when we're dead, right?
Somebody asked me if I was an artist, but this is definitely my piece de resistance. After all this, it's my masterpiece.
Oh
After all this
wow, I'd
time
like to
and
see. You got
effort
to
that I've
post
put
up some
into it.
pictures. We'll
Oh
post
no,
up some
when I
pictures
yeah
of your work, man, when it's done.
yeah, y'all are looking to buy a house.
Man, I would love to. What state do you live in, by the way?
I'm in Georgia. I live near Atlanta.
Oh, oh, cool. Yeah, you're not that far
No.
from me.
Y'all
Nah,
eat
yeah,
pretty good over there.
yeah. I mean, a little bit. Some of us. But anyway, I wanted to pop in and clarify. I was just that thing about the rooting for the terrorists was just because you said you didn't speak English, and I was thinking about how the bad guys
Oh,
in Die Hard are speaking German, aren't they? So you were probably like,
yeah,
these guys are making a lot of sense, you know? It just kind of struck me as funny. I didn't mean it to be like a personal
yeah. No,
comment on rooting for the bad guys or anything.
yeah.
But
Joel
no.
called her a terrorist.
One
Yeah,
of my
no.
favorite songs is called "Rooting for the Bad Guy."
No,
It's by the Wild Hearts.
it is very weird to people. I was saying, like, it's very weird. They're like, how can you speak? That doesn't even make sense. Normal.
Are,
Everybody
are you
associates
robot? Are
German
you?
with the
yeah, I'm not
NA.
hearing Sophia very well.
Yeah, go ahead and
Am I
repeat that,
roboting?
Sophia. Yeah, you were roboting again. I'm gonna take this plate back to the kitchen. Hold on.
I still roboting?
What? Well,
A little
try
bit.
again.
It's all your fault, Joel.
I was gonna say, is it me? I just joined. I could have messed y'all up.
Yeah, but
I'm here to
I'm gonna
I'm here to
I'm gonna
throw a
get out of
wrench in
here because
y'all's gears. That's
I think we
sorry,
yeah,
should blame
that's
it
Sophia.
your
on
Go.
the.
job, Joel.
That's it.
We should blame it on the flying spaghetti
Yeah,
monster.
but I'm gonna get out of here, guys. I really enjoyed myself and everything, and I'm gonna get out of here, guys. Y'all have a good one, okay?
You too.
Good to talk to you, Sophia. Have a good day.
Cheerio, mate. Have a good one. Then there were four.
And I'm excited to be on with you guys, Paul. I've been meaning to say you and I have been friends on Facebook for like a long time, but this will
Yeah,
be
it's
our
gone back a
first
while.
time speaking to each other.
Yeah.
Even over the phone or whatever. So very cool. Excited about that. How long
Yeah.
ago was it? Do you think that we ran into each other in
Oh
like the
goodness.
Atheist Experience
Yeah.
fan club on Facebook or
Oh,
whatever it was?
Yeah, it was that, and then there was the fella called Ray who had a group.
Oh yeah, I haven't forgotten Ray.
You were one of his mods or something, and then he had me on as a
Oh,
mod
we
for a
both
while.
were. Yeah,
Yeah.
we both were, but we both got kicked.
No. He taught me a good few lessons actually. That
Yeah, I
rule,
felt the same way.
the
Yeah.
strict rule that they had about no name calling, no insults.
Mhm.
That was
Yeah,
important. That was an important development for me because
Yeah.
it stretched me. It made me say what I wanted to say without adding "you get" at the end of it. You know.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
And I think we still apply that standard in the group that
yeah,
we're
Yeah,
in. We say, hey, don't talk about the person, just talk about the idea.
yeah.
that's right.
So
I also feel the same way with Paul. We've had quite a few conversations.
Cool. Okay. Have you got a different handle?
Yeah, so I don't think you were here for this, and I haven't really told anyone on Facebook that I'm Caleb. I'm a trans woman, so I'm changing my name to Nell. So,
Okay. Okay. Now,
last name
pleased to meet you.
Smith. Still,
yes,
right?
yeah. I'm gonna eventually, when I change my legal name, it'll be a completely different last name too. I'm gonna go back to my Armenian roots, and it'll be in Tablian. So,
Very cool.
mhm.
Well, I'll be honest. I'm curious to hear anything you're willing to share about it, but I also I recognize it's a deeply personal thing, and I'm hearing it's a very new thing. So, I don't blame you if you're still kind of, processing things yourself. So,
Oh yeah,
but
no. Lots of anxiety and just trying to make sure I tell the right people. And I mean, I trust you guys. I know I was going to ask Paul about that part of the book concerning gender identity.
Oh,
So,
okay.
just wanted to know how gender identity and idealism fit together. So.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So under idealism, consciousness is primary, and under non-dual idealism, it's a single consciousness that's primary. And the idea is consciousness itself doesn't actually have any gender. So if all there is consciousness, then all that we are is consciousness. So how we feel in terms of gender stereotypes and gender archetypes, that's completely unattached from any biological, physical reality of the sex of our body. And so it does kind of support this idea that there is independence between gender identity and biological sex. But also, what it does is it's a way to reduce the friction, because if we believe we are our bodies, but we don't feel that the reality of our experiences matches with our bodies, then correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like that's a big part of what is problematical in gender dysphoria and trans issues.
Well, for my own personal experience, it's like I only found out that I was a trans woman just like a week or two ago. So it's like it took me until the age of 35. So it's like I didn't even experience any sort of dysphoria. It's like, but I am experiencing euphoria at the thought of of becoming a woman. So it's like I do want to go through the transition and take the hormones and have the surgery. But it's like unlike other trans people, I haven't really experienced the dysphoria part of it.
So there wasn't a lot of suffering involved. It was just a case of a personal realization.
Personal realization, and I mean, sure, there's this anxiety, and I'm going to go to therapy for it. I'm not sure if this constant anxiety is a form of dysphoria, or if it's just just the thought of, oh, I'm trans now, living in this world that a lot of people hate trans people. So there's that part of it. But
yeah, and there's also folks that don't necessarily hate, but also just massively don't understand, and that they think that it's all like a fabrication of some kind. Do you see what I mean? There's hatred, and there's also just ignorance.
Oh yeah, no, and it's totally shifted my focus of like, because it's like before, when I just thought of myself as an ally to LGBT people, it's like it was much easier to fight back against those voices. But now that I'm part of the group, it's like I don't like seeing all those ignorant and hateful opinions on Facebook. Is just like I don't want to even be a part of it. It's like I don't need to, or I shouldn't have to argue my existence.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And that's where I think idealism and non-dualism, especially non-dualism, because there's different ways of interpreting of metaphysic like idealism, but non-dualism as a practice would be so accepting because it sees the unity, underlying everything. So there's no room for that kind of hate, unless you're just just a crazy person that's incoherent.
Yeah, like I might not be an idealist, and I'm gonna say, like, now that we're all here, it's like it's thanks to being having conversations with Paul, being in universalism group and being part of this channel where it's like you guys have shifted me from being a hard materialist to being agnostic about it all, and,
Yeah.
and I appreciate you guys opening my mind more to these ideas.
Yeah.
Oh,
And that's a good thing. Evolution, that's what it's all about. Just letting presenting new information and letting the information either resonate with you or not, but at least you've been exposed, and then you can make your own mind up. Like, it's not for anybody to really tell you what you should or should not believe. That's called dogma. And we don't really engage in dogma. That's bullshit. We'd rather people be sincere and genuine with things, and really it doesn't matter. I mean, for me, like, everyone has a right to understand things if they want to, or not understand things if they want to. I mean, it's what people are comfortable with. But the one thing that I would support is that we can all coexist and we can all support each other regardless.
Yes,
And
like
that's more or less where the non-dualism sort of comes in, that
yeah.
practice.
Oh yeah, and to me, it's like whether you're a materialist, idealist, panpsychist, or agnostic like myself, is if you adopt a cosmic perspective and you realize that the universe is in us, we are the universe. It's like to still be a bigot after that. It's just like what are you doing?
Right. That makes absolutely no sense. Like, that's the thing. Like all of these different. Yeah, go ahead, Paul. I'm sorry.
I do have a concern though with something you said, and it may even be quite silly, but I'm just wondering if there's a problem that we've become dogmatically anti-dogma.
Right.
All right, the paradox of tolerance.
Yeah.
Exactly. You can be so tolerant that you tolerate intolerance.
I mean, my solution
Yeah,
to that
but
paradox is just the social contract. If you violate that, then like, I don't want anything to do with you.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely don't, and that's why I pretty much stay in this house like a little shrew. I'm kind of like it's just me and the cats. We talk all day long, and they have a lot of good information. Most of my ideas come from my cat.
I thought you went out and did like DJ sets and stuff.
Oh yeah, I do that too. I try to do a lot of stuff, but right now I'm kind of grounded because of my car situation, and life kind of hit me hard here, and I haven't been able to do all the things I've wanted. But I've got dreams, man.
That's one of the things I was going to suggest collaborating on is like the musical stuff.
Yeah,
Because
cool.
I do a lot of it from like a different kind of angle. Mine's like sort of guitar-based songwriting and that, but I'm not very good on the production end of things. And it sounds like the stuff that you do would be perfect to like do like a remix with
Oh
like
yeah, absolutely, man.
some of the hooks that I'll come up with little like I call them like songsicles, because not all of my stuff is finished songs. I've got a whole bunch of stuff that's just like little song parts that haven't really found a way into becoming a full piece. And so yeah, like little bits and pieces like that. As I was listening to the what was it you shared, what was the link, there was a link to some
the Bandcamp.
yeah, it was Bandcamp link. And I was
there's been more than one
listening to some of your tunes. Yeah,
Those,
it just sounds like perfect for like a remix of some of the bits and pieces that I've come up with. And since we're also kind of philosophically aligned as well, I think you'll like some of the lyrics
hell
too.
yeah.
So,
Do you have recording equipment? Like, were you able to record your guitars?
I have actually. I've got an 8-track. And,
okay. Can you convert
yeah,
it to a digital file in
I
your
can.
computer? Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
So if you can
yeah.
do that,
Yeah,
just email me the guitar tracks, and we'll collaborate. We'll mix them down. We'll bounce them off each other, and we'll do some
yeah.
stuff like that, because that's
The
part of the
latest thing
way
that
I
came
make
like
money.
Yeah, cool. Latest thing that came my way was this little set of lyrics just saying, "If you are life and you are, then you're God's dream and you are." So there's a few other different lines that
Oh,
it read from there, like, "If you are life, then be. If you are life, then be well. If you are life and you are, then you're God's dream."
All right, I got a name suggestion, either for y'all's collaborative project or for the album itself.
Ooh.
Non-duets.
Very nice.
Non-duets.
I'll do that. I like that. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Well, I'm looking forward to
well,
Paul's
if
sequel book, Paul's Glory Hole.
only Joe hadn't taken all the acid. Now we don't have any more acid.
As a
All
matter
right,
of fact, I
guys.
do
Yeah,
have a
back when.
sequel plan, but it's not
The next hole.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Did I accidentally kill Paul? I'm sorry.
that. No, it was the cigarette that got me. No, that yeah, just kind of I laughed and the tobacco went down the wrong hole.
The next hole. The whole hole. Yeah.
Yeah, no, the sequel actually is going to focus on like
Yeah, the whole.
more of like an integration journey. So I'm going to journal, like the whole deals with more like the intellectual stuff, and the sequel's going to be sort of like things that aren't mentioned that come up in the chats, like classic apologetics and prayer and that kind of thing, but also just journaling, trying to sort of embody these spiritual practices and more sort of integrate and to live the philosophy as well as just thinking that it's the case. It's called A Journey to Nowhere and Back Again.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that won't excite you quite as much in the same way. But,
I'm good with
so
it, man.
sorry to
I do.
disappoint on that level, but I
I,
thought I'd mention there is a sequel in the works.
I'm gonna link up I actually created a little video for one of my songs. Let me put it down here in the live chat. Something really evil and dark, just like me. Yeah. So yeah, man. We should definitely do that. Anything that we can do to, make life exciting, help each other. I'm all for it. I got stuff in the pipeline though. I got jobs lined up, stuff like that.
Mhm.
So
Awesome.
I'll be okay. I'm gonna stay positive through this whole situation. And part of what helps me is this community and Sophia and you guys and being able to talk philosophy. It gets my mind off a lot of dumb shit. And I like to come back here. It's like coming back home. It's like I don't need to be out there worried about all that, but give it enough attention as necessary, and then go back to source, go back to non-duality, and try to not engage with the dual reality too much to the point where I want to actually literally go back to source.
Oh goodness, yeah. It's kind of harsh when those thoughts decide to pay a visit. Whew.
It's a mind bender. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream. I think
Okay.
we kind of ran out of gas, and it's all good. We went for a good solid 2 hours, and it was a great convo. I think we covered our bases and linked back up. Tomorrow I'm gonna upload. I recorded a video. It's really interesting with somebody. I'll post that up tomorrow, so y'all can check it out. I'll probably put it up tomorrow, same time, 12 noon.
All right.
I'm just gonna get
Well,
to
I would
editing
have
it now.
maybe pushed a little
Right.
harder to get to the topics or the criticisms that I had for Paul if I'd known we were doing
Hey,
an
if you
end
want to,
quickly. I
if
was
you
a
want
little
to
bit
do that,
holding
yeah.
back for the pleasantries and everything. People conversating with each other. I never want to, steamroll over
I
that.
see. Well, go right ahead.
Do you have
That's
time,
what I'm here
Scott?
for. Oh yeah,
Oh,
absolutely. I'm
cool.
just
Yeah.
I just didn't want to bore everybody to death. So
Well, I think
I felt like I was
obviously,
holding everybody
yeah.
hostage up here.
No, absolutely not.
Oh, you're
I'm
fine.
ready to have my feet held to the fire.
Let's do it, man.
All right. Well, hey, I feel like there's a couple of things we could pick from. One is the disagreements about parsimony and where it applies, what it points to validly and what it doesn't. And then, we also certainly have disagreements about how to assess parsimony. But then we could also talk about, the differences in how we see, for instance, the problem of consciousness. How we ought to take that.
Paul's dog doesn't agree.
He's selling off the fireworks. There's fireworks
Yeah.
going on.
Oh, okay.
He's giving them what for?
I have a feeling he's a dogmatist.
Yeah.
Dogmatist.
Nice.
He's being dogmatic over there. Come on, Paul.
Good. That's great.
Nice. Cool.
So anyway, the thing about parsimony is definitely really fresh in my mind. But again, if it's going to come down to, whose reference, is going to tell us the truth about what parsimony does, that's something that we could almost handle better in a group setting than live on the air. But I mean, have you guys not seen what I've seen about, the idea that like it's about a preference for hypothesis and not, never really phrased as anything besides that.
Okay.
And if so, do you think the preference for the hypothesis ought to be treated as, the same kind of weight that evidence that it's true, or do you think it's kind of a different kind of preference being expressed there?
So
if I say, hey, I'm bringing in the groceries, I prefer to start with the lightest stuff.
Yep.
And I'll carry the heaviest stuff last. That's my preference, right? It doesn't tell you anything about what's for dinner tonight, for instance. If I carry in, the lightest thing first, I might, and so it seems to me that there's a similar kind of thing going where you're saying, no, it says we should prefer it. And so it becomes part of the case for concluding that it's true or accepting it and saying, this is what I believe. And to me, it can't even be a part of that case validly. It's got to stick to what it is valid for, which is, as I said, just about where we start with in terms of testing, in terms of consideration, in terms of comparing, the conclusion to the evidence and just kind of saying what makes sense. Yeah. So that's the heuristic that we're talking about. But then there seems to be, as I said, especially, when often the impression that it is being used as also pointing towards truth.
Okay, so testability, very important in science. You don't have a scientific hypothesis unless it's testable. In metaphysics, your metaphysical hypotheses, you're very likely going to come to the point where you're comparing two untestable metaframes. So we can't test for a mind at large. We also can't test for material beyond awareness. So if we're looking at the combination,
do these things qualify as hypotheses then?
Well, they do in a metaphysical sense. They're not scientific hypotheses, they're metaphysical hypotheses. So
let me jump in real quick and introduce Objective Ethics. He's the my other co-host. I just wanted to say, hey, how you doing, Objective Ethics?
Hey, what's good, family? No, listen, I didn't want to detract from the conversation. I actually fell asleep while I was listening to you guys. I had a crazy long night at work last night. So I'm only a couple hours of sleep before the stream started. So I'm trying to hang in there. But I do have a couple things I wanted to offer, but I didn't want to detract from the conversation. So it's great to see everybody, and I'm really
glad to have you in.
Pretty fascinating. Oh, thank you for the kind words, brother, as always.
Yep,
So
nice
go ahead
to see you,
and
brother.
we'll let Joel. Paul answer this, and then we go around or whatever. Then I'll throw something in there.
So if we got two theoretical frameworks and neither of which are testable, then the heuristics become quite important in determining how we rank order our speculations. So we don't look at just parsimony, but parsimony is a thing that we look at. So in the same way that it can rank order the testable scientific hypotheses and tell us which ones are worth testing first, it can also help us to rank order the metaphysical speculations that we bring to bear in positing our frameworks. So a metaphysical theory isn't suggesting new science. It's a way to try and understand and incorporate the science that we already have. That's why explanatory power becomes a part of it, because it's like, if there's scientific findings that aren't explained by the framework, then that's a weakness in the theory. If there's scientific findings that aren't consistent with the framework, then that's a real problem for the theory. So what we need to do, if our framework is inconsistent with scientific findings, we either need to hope that the science is wrong, or we need to adjust our theory, or we need to abandon it. Those are the only options, really. So that comes into it. Consistency comes into it, but there's also coherence, there's explanatory power. Empirical support really does help if you can have some kind of empirical support for it. But also in the observables category, you've got proof of concept. And none of these things by itself is a real knockdown, winner-take-all argument case. But if you do have multiple lines of inquiry, multiple theoretical virtues that are all pointing in one direction rather than the other, then that's worth taking seriously. It doesn't guarantee you truth. There are no guarantees and absolute answers in metaphysics, but you don't get. It's not like you don't get any answers. What you get is you get small answers. You get, is this framework compatible and consistent with this particular scientific finding? If not, can we adjust it to incorporate it? But then it's a case of, does our adjustment require further commitments, making it less parsimonious? So, for example, if you need to invent hidden worlds and or hidden variables to reconcile a theory with scientific finding, then that's kind of a problem for that theory. It doesn't necessarily mean it's false, but it just means that the theory requires extra commitments. And those extra commitments, they cost something. There's an epistemological cost to commitments that aren't necessary. That's why Occam's razor is a valid heuristic. It's like the idea.
Yeah, but would you agree that the epistemic cost of something that you would deem unnecessary is met by evidence, epistemic warrant that it's true? If we find epistemic warrant that something's true, well, hey, the cost of it being complicated or, less parsimonious is negligible. It counts for naught against, in the face of actual evidence, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying is it actually doesn't tip the scale or point towards truth or falsehood. And so it cannot be part of a cumulative case. You're saying, well, this doesn't prove by itself that something's true, but as part of a cumulative case, it points to it being true. And I'm saying, no, that's the invalid application, is to say that it points towards something being true, when it actually points towards where we should begin investigation.
Yeah, I guess what you're saying, maybe we should consider like the null hypothesis to start with, like for example, for like some kind of statistical test, right? You can evaluate that null hypothesis, which would state that there's no effect or relationship between those variables, and this would help set like a baseline just for those comparisons. And then you'd, of course, you'd want to define your success metrics too, though. I admit that. I mean, for practical applications like A versus B, you clearly define the metric that's going to determine that success. For example, like, you want to avoid ambiguity, for example.
Yeah. And I get what both Joel and Paul are saying, because it's like, when it comes to the real world, sometimes the real answer isn't always the simplest thing that we can come up with. Take evolution, for example. It's like, the theist solution of, oh, God just said words and things came into existence. That's way simpler than, the complexity of evolution. But evolution is what's, actually true. And
well,
but it's like,
suppose you were to go back in time, let's say 1,000 years, and you're going to try to explain how, oxygen and air, what is air, what is oxygen, what is all this stuff. You would really have to assume like trillions and trillions and trillions of air molecules. That's not very parsimonious. But as it turns out, that's exactly what it is, right?
Yeah. But I also, it's like, on the other hand, though, I get that, like, when it comes to metaphysics, it's like we're not dealing with these sorts of empirical stuff. And so it's like, it's, it's always nicer to err on the side of simplicity. If you can make less assumptions, it's usually, better to do that. So.
Yeah. And I mean, a couple of points of clarity there. When we're talking about something like metaphysics and we're saying, well, it's not a testable area. To me, the thing that follows is, well, then we shouldn't be applying these principles that apply to testability. They just don't apply here if it's not their area. Now, personally, I do think that starting with the simplest explanation is still a reasonable thing to do when you're considering untestable explanations. It's just that I'm adamant about that it is a heuristic that points us to where we ought to begin, and never to say, hey, all things equal, I'm going to accept the most parsimonious explanation, because then we're treating it like it is epistemic warrant. Even if we're saying, no, we know it's not. We know it's not the same thing. But if we're letting it tip the scales in favor of belief, it doesn't matter what we're calling it or what we're saying. We're treating it like epistemic warrant. So it's got to be an invalid application. To say something that doesn't point towards truth is going to point me towards accepting something as true. Yeah.
So the delineation I would make there is that a pointing towards truth and a pointing towards virtue are slightly different. So one theoretical framework versus another may be more virtuous in that respect. It doesn't mean that we're basing our decision on that virtue alone. It simply means that it's like you say about a rank ordering thing. It's the theory that requires us to make the less stuff up and commit to less unknowns just has a theoretical virtue advantage. It doesn't necessarily mean that it points towards truth, but it does mean that it's just a superior virtuous theory in that respect. And if the entire case is supported by empirical support, by proof of concept, by coherence, by consistency, by explanatory power, and parsimony, right? If you just bring parsimony in just as that final little push, because here's the thing.
Why do you need it? If you've got empirical support, what is parsimony doing there? If you've got empirical support that one thing is true over another, you absolutely do not need parsimony to tip the scales. You've got epistemic warrant in the form of evidence.
It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to have the conceptual analysis as well.
That's the point, is it doesn't help. It doesn't tip the scales in terms of what's true.
What do you think of ethics?
Here's why it does help, okay? Because if you've got a theory with more explanatory power than the other theory, right, then that in and of itself is a virtue. But if you have gained that extra explanatory power unparsimoniously, then the bang for buck consideration isn't as in your favor as you might think. Because, for example, the God of the gaps argument, right? If we've got a gap somewhere and we appeal to a bigger mystery to replace that gap, that's unparsimonious. And the problem with it is that it's unparsimonious. Okay? And it's not necessarily that parsimony provides that extra advantage. It's that a lack of parsimony negates any extra explanatory power that you would have gotten by adding that extra commitment. That's where it does become an important heuristic, because if you
that's just two different expressions of parsimony to say You know, something that is less parsimonious has less explanatory power. Yeah,
No,
that's what it means.
It doesn't. That's the thing, it doesn't, because you can have more explanatory power because of your extra commitment, in which case you are gaining a theoretical advantage with the extra explanatory power, but you're doing it at an epistemic cost.
Which we agree is offset by epistemic warrant. It doesn't matter how costly a belief is, if we have evidence that it's true, the lack of parsimony does nothing to tip the scales.
I'm assuming
that's what I keep trying to point out to you. You keep trying to tie it to a reasonable belief in something, and I keep saying reasonable belief in something has to be tied to reasons to think it's true. So if you acknowledge that something is not a reason to think it's true, then it can't be part of the case that something is true.
What if rather than thinking it's true, you're just thinking that it's less wrong than an alternative?
Sorry, repeat.
What if rather than thinking that something is true, all you're trying to achieve is to be less wrong than the alternative? If it's just about rank ordering a speculation.
Again, that's just
assuming
another way of talking about what's true or false. Does parsimony tell you what's false?
It tells you what requires more commitments, and that those commitments may be unnecessary.
So the answer is no. It doesn't point you towards what's away from what's false, does it?
Well, we're not trying to get it to answer that question. The question we're trying to get it to answer is not what's true or what's false, it's what's more plausible.
So it's not part of the case for what's true.
Is it part of the case for what's true?
The part of the case for what's true should include things that point towards it being true. I mean, to be very...
What happens when two or more theories are equally supported by empirical evidence?
Yeah, and that's the thing I was just going to point out to, like Joel's point of, you know, what's the point of parsimony if we have the empirical evidence? And I was just going to say that it's like, sure, in the realm of science, all that really matters is the empirical evidence. But it's like when we're taking an entire metaphysical theory, you know, that encompasses the science, then it's like we have to look at things beyond the science. And so it's like, you know, but both materialists and idealists can look at the scientific evidence and be like, that supports our position. So then it's like, well, then what else is there?
But I take Joel's but I do take Joel's comment very seriously. I guess what he's talking about is misapplication. So like you could take like that principle and it can be misapplied by wrongly assuming that a simpler theory is just inherently more plausible without first considering the evidence. I get that. But yes, all I'm saying is what happens when we all have the same data. We all have the same data points. And now we're trying to do a selection process. And if we've got one that's more parsimonious than the other, wouldn't that factor into the most desired theory to consider as more plausible, or no?
That's what I think is a mistake, is to treat it as if it tips the scales when everything else is equal, when at the same time we're acknowledging that it doesn't point us towards what's true. The scales are equal in terms of evidence means the things that actually point towards something being true and warrant reasonable acceptance are equal. And so we're kind of, we don't know what to go with.
Well,
Joel, can I ask you a question? I want to ask Joel a question. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Joel, if we agree that we don't know what's true, do you think that it is possible to rank order our educated guesswork at all? To work in the blade. To work in the blade.
Well, you know, obviously we want to get in by what do you mean when you say we don't know? But I mean, if you're just saying we don't have anything to go by reasonably, then we can rank order it in terms of any, what do I want to say, metric that we want to apply. We could say which one of these is most parsimonious, and then we could put it in that order. Or we could say which one of these ideas do I like the most, and we can put it in that order, right? But the order that we can't reasonably put it in is the order of most likely to be true, if we don't have reasons to back that up. And that has to be evidence. It can't be based on parsimony.
So is a theory that makes more stuff up as likely to be true as a theory that makes less stuff up?
Let's see. I mean, if you're just talking about inventing things.
Mm-hmm. Or do you think it's an absolute
versus what? Pointing to things that you have evidence for, right?
I'm just saying, okay, let's consider the flying spaghetti monster. There's a lot of explanatory power in that. It's absolutely internally consistent. It's logically coherent. But the reason we don't take it seriously is because of the extra commitment to this unknown, right? That we have to posit. It's the lack of parsimony that makes us not particularly care much about that theory or take it seriously at all.
I don't agree,
So
but I
no,
understand why you think that. No, I think the flying spaghetti monster was meant to serve as a what's the word? A parody of
yeah,
what
Hmm.
theists believe.
Right.
When they say, "Hey, a God is the explanation for everything," you can't explain how everything got here, and so
mhm,
God must exist. And
yeah,
so the atheist says, "Well, how do you know it wasn't the flying spaghetti monster?" Well, the reason we don't take that seriously is because, one, we as atheists don't believe that. We're just giving it as a parody. And the
mm,
people who we're giving it to definitely don't take it seriously because it's meant to be kind of a poking fun at, the whole point of it being made of spaghetti, having noodly appendages, is to kind of poke fun at theism and how silly it is.
right. So what specifically is the lack of virtue that the FSM is parodying about the God of the Gaps?
Right.
The FSM was created to point at the God of the Gaps arguments and say, look, you're adding things, you're multiplying entities beyond necessity. You're getting extra explanatory power, but you're doing it by cheating. You're doing it by just imagining stuff and saying this solves the problem.
Oh.
I
That's
think we
when
lost Joel.
parsimony becomes
Yeah.
relevant.
Yeah, Joel.
Oh, no, that's a total shame.
Yeah, objective ethics. Can you weigh in because you're a very powerful thinker, and maybe you can shed some more light to push us ahead here.
No, brother, as always, I appreciate the kind words. I'm actually trying to turn my brain back on here. So I missed a chunk of this conversation because I actually fell asleep. But I did catch the beginning of this, and I found several things quite fascinating. The way that you guys were talking about objective and subjective morality was quite interesting and kind of tied into some things I saw from the conversation last night. And one thing I would say is that there is a type of argumentation. It's a presumptional argument, and I mean presumptional, not presuppositional. So I hope we're clear on that term. And essentially, what we do is we take a hypothesis and we say, okay, if proposition was true, what would we expect to see?
Mm-hmm.
And this is another way of approaching, looking for type of evidence that may not necessarily be empirically grounded. You can use this as part of the scientific method. It's called making predictions, right? That's what the scientific method does. It makes predictions, but you can apply that in other areas of argumentation when you don't have the empirical evidence available. So I do think that can be plausible, but it can be very dangerous in how you apply it, because the problem is it allows people to either intentionally or out of just ignorance pick and choose selectively at what their expectations are. So you got to be really careful about that, and that's one thing I think Joel might be raising here. If I'm picking up what he's putting down, I think it's a valid criticism. Is if you ultimately don't have a variable, a truth false variable in there, then every single person's approach to the same topic could be so wildly different as to what their expectations are. And so I just think that caution is warranted at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see anything wrong with that at all.
No, that's I'm thinking about it, and it seems to add up. That's good. I mean, and I think that misapplication can easily happen. But I think still, though, if we've, that still doesn't seem to answer the question. If we've got multiple theories,
Is this just so I'm following? I just want to make sure. Are we specifically talking about dualism versus non-dualism in this? Because when the flying spaghetti monster got brought up, that was an interesting analogy. But I think that like what Joel was saying is that kind of serves a specific purpose. The problem is that it's not something that's taken seriously because it's a straw man of the basic argument, which is the philosophical argument of like Aristotelian, the unmoved mover, or Ansell's, the necessary being kind of, or the maximally great being. So these are philosophical arguments that are designed to argue for the existence of God. And so to get down to the core so that the concept of God doesn't get straw man, we say, well, we're not talking about the Christian God or the Hindu God or whatever. We're not going to go down that road. What we want at the starting point is God, just quote unquote, this maximally great being or the necessary being, the unmoved mover, however you want to define it. It gets really, really basic and simple so that we could even address the question. And then once people establish that, then each different sect of religion wants to decide, well, now that we've established we need to have a first cause, for example, and we can say that it has to be a trinity, or it has to be God, Lord Vishnu, or whatever the hell they want to, separate it off to from that point there. But so maybe I'm not sure the flying spaghetti monster is necessarily, unless I might be missing something here, because again, like I said, I'm just trying to kind of wake the cobwebs up. I probably should go have some more coffee, keep my mouth shut here, listen to you guys.
So what do I call you? Is it objective? What? How do you? Is it?
Yeah, I go by Objective Ethics on YouTube. My name's
Right.
Daniel, but Objective Ethics is what I go by on YouTube. Absolutely. Nice to meet you, by the way. I did enjoy the conversation. When I fell asleep, it wasn't because it wasn't entertaining. I had an insane night at work last night. I've only got a couple hours of sleep, and we don't usually start this stream this early.
Pleasure to meet you too, Daniel. Excuse me. So I brought up the FSM to highlight what it is that the FSM was invented to parody, which is the lack of parsimony in a God of the Gaps argument. So yes, you do get extra explanatory power if you add a God into the gaps, but you're doing so at the cost of multiplying entities beyond necessity. So in that regard, the very utility of it is to point out that it is possible for one theory to be superior to another in terms of relative conceptual parsimony. That isn't supposed to be a final arbiter, but it is supposed to be a part of how we rank order our speculations. So the speculation that's most supported by evidence is, of course, advantaged. The speculation that's most internally coherent, consistent, is advantaged. The speculation that explains more scientific findings is advantaged, and the speculation that invokes fewer entities is advantaged as well. It's all a matter of whether or not these heuristics are relevant in the final analysis, not whether or not they can tell you in and of themselves whether the thing is true. For example, having proof of concept really helps, but proof of concept only tells you that a theory is demonstrably viable. It doesn't tell you that it's true, but it's still a virtue. It's still a positive thing to have. It's a good thing to have for that theory. And if you've got another theory that doesn't have proof of concept and that is less coherent and it is less consistent, it has less explanatory power and it's less parsimonious, then there's very little reason to favor that inferior theory. Now, as Joel rightly points out, if you've got empirical support for it, then that does override things, because it doesn't matter how theoretically unvirtuous something is if it's completely supported by the evidence and supported exclusively by the evidence. So these other heuristics, they're more or less kind of tiebreakers when we don't have the empirical difference maker.
Well, it becomes an epistemic issue, it sounds like.
Yeah. And Joel makes a good point of like, since it's just how good are these holistics if it doesn't point toward truth, and I'd say that's also one of the reasons why I remain agnostic. It's like, because it's because of those question marks of is it really true?
I'm agnostic too, man. It's the humble way to be.
Me too.
Well, do you mind if
Well,
I
but
just
in
clarify?
this case, let's
Do you mind?
clarify what we mean. I think in the
Yeah, I'd
case
like to
for
clarify
Caleb,
a couple things. I'd like to clarify two
go
things.
Daniel,
First
go.
thing I'd like to clarify, if I may, is are we actually, this is conversation specifically related to dualism and non-dualism, is that correct?
Yes.
It is.
Okay. And the other thing I'd like to clarify is when people say they're agnostic, I've heard that term used a couple of times between last night and today. I can't remember which it was, but it was not about a God claim. It was about something, some other mundane or whatever the topic of discussion was. But someone said, "Oh, I'm agnostic about proposition A," and the term agnostic really does have kind of a specific
Right.
indication that it's talking about theism, and
Yep.
it's not really to say that you don't know or don't not know. It can be used that way, but it does confuse me when I hear people say agnostic at this point because when you
Can I
guys are
clarify
saying you're
something, Daniel?
agnostic,
Daniel, can I
I'm
clarify
sorry, what's
something?
that, brother?
I just want to
Yeah,
clarify
of course.
something for you. I was being lazy. What I should have said is metaphysically agnostic.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Okay, so yeah, you're absolutely right. Agnosticism usually applies to theism. It's not necessarily a transferable term. I was using a shorthand. I meant metaphysically agnostic, but I was lazy in my phrasing.
Yeah, and that's
Well,
No,
that's
I
fair
really,
because we were
I
talking
really
about
appreciate
metaphysics,
that.
so
yeah,
Yeah,
it makes
I
sense to use
do
it that way.
appreciate that.
because
I appreciate that very much because I do think that I am not the language police. So I'm just trying to follow what people are saying, and I respect that you
yeah,
recognize that because I have studied some of this stuff formally. And one of the things I studied when I was at seminary was the origins of atheism and agnosticism. So when I hear someone say atheist or agnostic, I have a really structured understanding of what those words mean. But we live
yeah,
in a
no,
world today where people identify in many different ways and they have every
yeah,
right to identify
yeah,
that way. And I'm not here to tell people how to identify, but I'm
yeah,
just trying to keep up with the conversation. So
yeah.
I
No,
appreciate you acknowledging that.
no, you're good. When it comes to myself, when it comes to the God question, I'm atheist, and when it comes to like metaphysical reality and what it's made up of, I'm agnostic. Like if you said, "Oh, is it made of material or is it made of mind stuff?" I don't know. So
But I think there's an important distinction here to make, and that is if you ask somebody, what's the answer to this question, they could either say, I don't know the answer to the question. I'm not positing an answer to the question. I'm not convinced I know what the answer is. And then there's someone who says, I think the answer is X, but I'm agnostic about it, which means I'm not claiming to know that it's sure, for certain that it's the case. And so I'm just saying, I don't want to put words in Paul's mouth, but I think when he says he's agnostic about metaphysics, he means he's accepted conclusions. He just is not claiming to know they're true. Whereas when Caleb and I say we're agnostic about metaphysics, and maybe this applies to Daniel as well. Sorry, no, sorry.
you're
Um,
good.
that we don't mean that we have accepted a conclusion that we're not certain of. We mean we're not accepting a conclusion because we see a lack of justification there. And
So,
yeah, go ahead.
oh, I did, brother. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. There's two things, real quick. I don't know if Tom's trying to get in here, but did you guys see that message pop up? Tom is actually a friend of mine, and he's going to be our guest next week. So I don't know, Tom, if you're out in the chat, if you want to join us, it'd be great to hear from you. But if you want to just chill out back there, however you want to do it, I'm glad to see you. The term agnostic, if I could just kind of just lay that out real quick, it actually entails two things. One is neither belief nor disbelief, and that's how a lot of people tend to use the word in broad terms. But it's a very specific understanding of agnosticism is that you don't think it's possible to know. So if somebody is, let's say somebody that doesn't believe in God, right? But they think it's possible to know, they would be what's called like a soft atheist. And if somebody does believe in God, but they don't think it's actually possible to know, they just believe because they believe, that's really more of a type of agnosticism, because agnosticism really hinges on, do you think it's even possible to find the answer? So I'm agnostic, wholly agnostic about the whole God proposition, because I neither believe nor disbelieve, nor do I think it's possible to know anything about any gods or anything supernatural. So that makes me entirely agnostic. So that would be like the core, if you want to get technical about agnosticism. But again,
Yeah,
these
yeah,
terms
and I'll
can be
acknowledge,
used.
absolutely acknowledge these are good, usages of the terms. These are the ones that you find when you look up the definition in the dictionary.
Yep.
If you go back to what Anthony Flew said about his position when he coined the term agnosticism, it's much closer to what I'm saying, which is something along the lines of, I don't claim to know things that I can't demonstrate are true. And for me, I just extend that to say I don't believe things unless I have sufficient warrant for claiming that they're true.
And I just want to welcome Tom Takes. He's on stage, so welcome to the stage, brother. We look
Thank
forward
you.
to
Thank
your
you.
work.
Mhm.
Yes,
Hey,
sir.
Tom.
Hey,
Hello.
Tom.
Hello. Just been listening in on your agnostic debate here. Interesting.
Yep.
Hi there, Tom.
Yeah, you're right,
Well, and just
Joel. And I don't want to derail the conversation into these kind of semantic games, because again, like I said, I'm literally not trying to police things. I'm just trying to understand where people are coming from, so I don't have to ask them a bunch of clarifying questions. But people can, like I said, people can identify with literally however they want. Uh, these terms get used so broadly anymore that what means something to one person may or may not even mean to somebody else. But for communication purposes, I just want to make sure I'm following what you good people are putting out there, because I think there's a lot of good information here, and I think that the argument, that the pushback that you're giving, Joel, is substantial and valid. And you were gone when I was trying to kind of help maybe parse out some of that, so I don't know if you heard much of what I had to say about the types of argumentation and stuff. But
yeah, I'm
I'll
sorry
let
to
you go
drop
ahead with
out right as you guys were addressing what I had said. I backed out. That was my fault. Yeah, I do think it was worth hashing out what we mean by agnostic when all three or four of us are going, yeah, we're all agnostic, even though some of us accept the conclusion and some of us are reserving judgment on it. So that's all I thought was worth saying. Hey, we mean different things here.
But maybe a good starting point, maybe we could ask everybody around the board, um, because on my view, I think that the most primary and probably the only real thing that we really know for certain is that we have an experience of existing. It's Descartes. I mean, can we at least admit that we all know consciousness is the starting point?
100%.
I'm
I
not.
don't.
Oh, you go first, Joel.
No, I don't mean to cut you off. I thought that was a short answer. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say that I don't think that's controversial to say that starting with our own experience, and that so we are only certain of our own experience, and then we can build up our worldview from there.
Hmm. So it would be more parsimonious to start with the thing we know, which would be consciousness. Can we agree when we start doing these sort of modeling?
Well, this is the point where it's important to specify, to the extent that consciousness is primary here, we're talking about the highest level of certainty. You guys want to call that certainty? Is that absolute certainty in your mind?
Yes.
Can
Okay.
I say why I think it is, or do you want to continue?
No, it's okay. Yeah.
So I think that the fact that some experience is happening is definite, because to doubt it involves the experience of doubting, and that even if every component of experience is some kind of grand illusion, Boltzmann brain, in the Matrix, whatever,
Hmm.
that an illusion itself requires to experience something misleading. So the poetical way I try and phrase that is to say that the illusion of an experience is the experience of an illusion. So even if the contents of experience are illusory, the fact of experience remains, because you're
All
still
right. I'm hearing
experiencing,
a lot
even
of
if you're
good
just
reasoning.
experiencing an illusion, you're experiencing something. Experiences
All right.
happen.
I'm hearing a lot of good reasoning here, Paul. I'm even
Mm-hmm.
about to say I'm on board with what you just said. Now, here's the
Mm-hmm.
question: is reasoning reliable?
Interesting.
If reasoning isn't reliable, then your conclusion about the impossibility that you could be wrong is going to go afoul, right? So even prior to saying, hey, I am intimately familiar with experience, you have to assume reasoning is reliable in order to get to a conclusion about that from there. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
So should you know, to
But
say, everything that you just said, and then I would say, okay, and I agree, but are we saying now we can't be wrong about that? Because that seems so ironclad that we cannot be wrong about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because in order to say absolute certainty, we need to be able to say we can't be wrong about it. There's no way we can be wrong.
I would say we can
Well,
only be wrong if reasoning is not reasonable.
and you would have to start off with the axiom that it is reasonable, because otherwise it would be solipsism to some degree, right?
right. You
Mm-hmm.
see, that's what I was about to say. Is it seems um,
But no,
like the
we don't
conscious
have to. That's
character
my
of your mental states, like say your visual experience, should provide the justification for your belief validly, because you experience it, you see it, other people see it. It gains more strength when it's objective, like when everybody can share in that conscious experiential, you know, where the
well now
experience
that's
intersects. Then it kind of
Yeah, now
gains.
that's definitely assuming that solipsism is not true to say that
Right,
well we're all experiencing it together, and
right, right,
I
right,
think
right.
that was Tom who said, hey, we've got to assume reasoning or else solipsism, and I'm
Yes.
kind of saying, well, who disproved solipsism? Who
Nobody.
proved that was okay? So we're not going to say reasoning has to be true, therefore we can be absolutely certain about this ironclad reasoning. We're in the position of saying we hope that reasoning is reliably true, but we can't even disprove solipsism.
No, we can't
Hmm.
disprove it, but it's like it's one of those things where it's like also our intuitions are just, and obviously something isn't just true because of intuition, but it's like it's one of those things where it's like it sends off red flags to me, where it's like the position of solipsism, can't say it, but it's like it just feels so narcissistic and icky.
Or does it feel parsimonious?
Oh
No,
no,
I
it's
think
like
that
it's
It's
very
very parsimonious.
parsimonious. Yeah.
Very
I do
parsimonious.
think
It's
that what we should be considering, because I think everyone here in this room knows that there is no solution to hard solipsism. It's an
right.
one of the unsolvable philosophical dilemmas. However, so many of the greatest thinkers, the people who really started philosophy, to as far as I'm concerned, you talk about like Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, and even people further down the line, Kant, for example, and I could name so many others. You talked about Descartes. There is something called the law of intelligibility, and it's not a law like a law of physics, but what it's basically, the philosophical minds have come together to say, okay, listen, we have to have a baseline, a starting point that's going to be considered common ground for everybody, right? And because we know we
Hmm.
can't, we've got to bite the bullet on solipsism. That's just the way it is. We can
Hmm.
go into essentially what leads to a nihilistic kind of a conclusion that there's no hope to find anything out, not, or we have to figure out a way that we can get some common ground that everybody gets the same starting point, and that comes down to intelligibility. So we start to assume, and we are presupposing certain things at this point, but it's considered a healthy presupposition, or I would say at least a necessary presupposition. And part of it is our experiential reality, right? This is what Descartes, I think, therefore I am. It's based on experience, right? And so, unless we're just going to just throw out solipsism, or just give into solipsism right now and say, well, solipsism is a trump card, so the conversation basically would end there. I think we should just agree that we have a common starting point and say, okay, well, experiential reality is our starting point. So let's move on from there. And then as far as reason goes, again, I mentioned the same philosophers, and that reason is considered incredibly valuable and reliable, to the degree that anything is reliable up until you bump up against solipsism. Now, does that mean that
Yeah, yeah.
you cannot reason yourself out of the truth? Well, if you can convince yourself of anything, the mind is extremely powerful. That doesn't necessarily mean that just because people can convince themselves of something that's wrong, that reason now has no value.
No,
Well,
no,
I kind of
but please don't misunderstand me to be saying that reason has no value. Um, I was just pointing out that in terms of declaring something absolutely certain, we can't say, well, we know for certain that reason can't be flawed, and we necessarily rely on it in order to get to a conclusion about the self existing, no matter what level of certainty you want to put on that. And I do put the
I
highest level of certainty. That's
I
how I
agree with
assess
you.
it, is the highest
I
level of certainty that one can have.
Yeah,
But again, it's not absolute. We don't know
no,
for certain it's
but the
true in
problem
a way
is,
that we can't say is wrong.
yeah, but the problem is so as an engineer and a scientist myself, and in the engineering field, right? You guys talked about proof of concept, and when you have a proof of concept, that's when people start investing money, real money, into ideas and stuff,
mm,
because you've got a viable idea. You don't have the
mm-hmm.
So my boat, when I designed my boat, it started with an idea, right? And I drew up the schematics, I did the engineering on it, the testing and stuff using other stuff, and then I came up with what's called a proof of concept. Once I got the proof of concept, then the money started rolling in, because I had the all the evidence I needed without having the boat itself yet. So proof of concept, there is a real value there, even though it's not empirical at that point yet. The other thing I would say is that even as an engineer and a scientist, I can tell you that we tend to use strong language when we have like you said, the highest degree of confidence that we feel we can attain on something. But there's no such thing as a fact in science. We don't have absolute truth. We don't think we
Right.
have, even scientists don't think they have access to absolute truth. So that's really
Yeah.
religious people, and I'm not trying to throw shade on religious people as just an unnecessary dig here, but dogmatism leads to people believing they have this access to absolute truth. But truthfully
Bingo.
speaking, we don't have access
Yeah.
to absolute truth. That's just, we have no
Yeah.
way to prove that. And solipsism is a great way of proving that. So no, you don't actually have access to anything absolute.
Yeah, it's like every rule is really doubtable because, there's always exceptions that are possible, and every fact is doubtable because we could always be mistaken. So someone could always have made an error, or they could have lied, or our memories could be inaccurate, so on and so on and so on. So the problem of regress is kind of applying here, where is it reasonable for us to stop doubting and to stop asking questions? When should we just shut up and believe?
Well, here's the thing. We were talking about absolute certainty. We don't need absolute certainty in order to reasonably be convinced of something. And that's kind of what I was saying, is we're talking about things that I accept. We're talking about things that I'm saying high level of certainty for this. I'm just going to
Like a high
disagree
level
with the idea
probability.
that we can have absolute certainty, or say we
Mm.
couldn't be wrong.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and, and
Mhm.
that's the point where I disagreed, was at that point. I do have a I do have
It's more like a
another
high level
point to
probability,
make.
would you say?
Yeah, sure. When we talk about being more and more certain, I think in some ways that is kind of right in line with the same things that we would say more or less probable.
Now, would you guys agree that hold on, like I don't know, hard problem of solipsism isn't really that bad if you kind of look at it like, if you doubt your senses to the degree that you think reality is not real, then you need to doubt your solipsism to the same degree. And it's kind of self defeating at that point in time.
Yeah. Yeah. It is very
Hmm.
self
Yeah.
defeating.
Yeah.
What would
Yeah.
what would doubting the conclusion that you had reached, that like, hey, this is a real solipsistic world that I'm living in?
Well, yeah, I mean, like if you're doubting your senses to the degree that you don't think reality is actually real, then how do you not doubt everything else that you think is actually or in your head? It's just weird. It's kind of like just collapses in on itself.
Well, I think the view is that whatever you're experiencing, you're assuming your mind is creating it. There's like a subconscious level where you yourself are producing these things. I would just assume that if someone actually accepted that being true, then they would just say, hey, all these things are just as important to me as they've always been. I still have to eat. I still want to get along with people, whatever. Um, Thinking that the source is my subconscious mind to me doesn't really change much about that.
I don't know who would believe that. That's just solipsistic, and it's a problem. But
So the reason I
it
think,
kind of I was going to say it kind of leaves the other point. Is it rational to believe things without evidence? And the answer most of us would probably instinctively say would be obviously no. But if you reject that, you still have to provide a theory of rational warrant. And some people could say, well, the problem of solipsism, bingo. But that's just not for me satisfying, though, Joel.
was that did you think that was what I was
No,
saying?
no. I'm just saying
Oh,
that,
okay.
that's another thing to kind of add to that. What
Yeah,
you're actually
yeah.
kind of making the point. I'm kind of adding to that.
Hmm.
It leaves that other point.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, one thing I like to point out about solipsism is that realizing that you can't disprove it is not a reason to think it's true,
Right.
right? And
Perfect.
do we have a reason to think it's true? I don't think we have a reason to think it's true. Okay. All we have is the suggestion that you wouldn't know if it was true, which we can acknowledge and then move on from because there has been no reason to change whether we think it's true or not. We haven't been given a reason to think it's true. All we've been done is, to point out that we couldn't know if it was false. You would have no way of knowing, right? And so, in my mind, the seemingness, the appearance of an external world, whether you want to think of that as physical objects or other minds that we interact with, yeah, I think the seeming that we are doing that is a good enough reason to think it's true in the absence of a reason to think otherwise. And again, the fact that I can't disprove solipsism is not a reason to think otherwise, and so I'm not a solipsist. To me, that's okay. You know, um, that's a good enough reason.
I have met
Well,
a
the thing
soft
that keeps
solipsist
me from,
before. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. Oh yeah, sorry, brother. No, the thing that keeps me from jumping in to the non-dualist side, where I kind of remain on the outside looking in, I find it very interesting, and I do find some of the arguments compelling. Especially, I've heard Scott talk about this quite a bit now, and he presents it very well. He's studied this subject for a long time, so he gives a really comprehensive argument for it. There's no doubt about that in my mind. The reason that I don't buy into it whole cloth yet is because I think one of the best ways that we can approach a subject, these transcendental concepts, I think there's a lot of transcendental concepts that are hypothetical that we deal with in life. Everything can be empirical, which is why I'm not a materialist. I'm a naturalist, right? There's a big difference there between naturalist and materialist. They
Mm-hmm.
can cross over, but I'm a naturalist. I believe everything ultimately that is real, whether it's physical or not, is based on the natural world. But to get to some conclusions, some truth claims, if we want to call them truth claims, um, I think coming up with logical arguments carries a lot of weight. So if I was to hear a syllogism, right, some really good, valid syllogisms for in favor of non-dualism or in favor of dualism, that would probably push me, or can be a lot more convincing to me. I tend to believe, as you guys, probably everyone here knows, if you've spoken to me enough, that I believe that we're all brothers and sisters. I believe we're all connected in humanity. And so I do think that there's a lot of stuff we can look at in this universe. We're all made from the same material, the same inorganic material floats around. I mean, so there's a lot of interconnectedness in the universe. So I do think it's very compelling concept, this non-dualistic concept. but I have yet to hear the logical argument put forward. And other than just it's very convincing, it seems reasonable, you know. So I think that logic could be a really useful tool in
Well, it is, yeah.
bringing up.
What the problem comes in when we don't accept the premises, right? If we can all accept a certain premise, then it makes it easier to kind of make that work. Like, for example, like dualism is based on this premise that all reality is ultimately composed of one fundamental substance or principle. It doesn't matter what it is, whatever you care about, but at least we should agree that it is composed of one fundamental substance or principle, right? Now, a dualistic person would disagree. And so the starting points are different. When the starting points are different, we're always going to land in different places, right? We're never going to land in the same place. But if we can agree there, then the logic could follow that duality, the idea of separate things, is an illusion. What we perceive as distinct objects are just different forms or flavors of the single substance, not fundamentally separate entities necessarily, because reality, as we premised, is ultimately composed of one fundamental substance. So, for example, like
Scott,
the
are you
different
talking
colors.
about premises in a
Yeah.
syllogism, or are you talking about like
No,
posits? Like,
I'm saying that if there's, we have to argue for the premise. And if we can agree with the premise, then we can start building on that together and see what makes more sense. But
okay.
if we inherently disagree with the premise, like let's say you're a dualist and you feel like, there's, at least in the, like there's matter and then there's consciousness. These two things are totally different substances. Then we'd have to kind of hash out how do we know that, and we can get into that argument and go. But if we can just start off with the premise that all reality is ultimately composed of that one substance or that one principle in this case, then we can start forming a logical syllogism and kind of get there. So, and then also, there's limitation of language. So like another premise could be language really works by creating distinctions in categories. So we may be just locked into our language. And so non-dualism would point, so if you can agree to that, then non-dualism maybe could point to a reality without fundamental separation because language requires division. So it cannot fully capture or prove that, right? So any logical argument constructed using language will necessarily be dualistic, which is circular. And this would highlight the
Well, I think
limitation.
that I think that the thing to remember when I say that is that there's a distinct difference between a valid syllogism and a syllogism that leads to a sound conclusion. And you're not going to get a sound conclusion for something like this, so that's not even on the table. So the other thing to remember is that, yeah, so if you properly form, and I'm talking about a truly properly formed syllogism, not just one that seems good on the surface or is valid in most circles, but if you really study syllogistic logic, there's really a form to it. And there's you've got a binary choice here. I don't see this as being anything other than a binary choice. Either things are dualistic or non-dualistic. There isn't a third option, right? There's no excluded middle
Right.
available in
Correct.
this. So what you would have to do then is, if you're going to play the game and you're going to be fair about it, right? Then, and you're really looking for something true, it's normally a fallacy to say that you have to prove an alternative in order to disprove something. That's not normally how things work. So, just because theists hand wave away evolution does not mean that they actually have to prove their God concept to prove evolution is wrong. Now, they can't prove evolution is wrong. That's obvious. It's so well evidenced. But they think that they could just escape culpability for having to come up with their own answer, right? Their own connection that to fix that God of the gap scale fallacy on their end by hand waving away, evolution. So in this situation where you have a binary choice, a clear binary choice, because when it comes to the God of the gaps with the creation versus the evolution theory, there's actually other alternatives. So it's not binary. Aliens could have created the world. There's just so many other stupid, magic pink unicorn could have done it with unicorn farts. Who knows? But when it comes to something like this, you've got a true binary. So that means if somebody's going to hand wave away, one of the premises, they really need to have a alternative premises. So whoever's got the better formed argument at that point, I would think would have the more convincing argument. That's how I would see it anyway. And then again, what I mentioned before when Joel was not in the room is that we look at the presumptional argument. What would we expect to see if proposition was true? What would we expect to see if proposition B was true? This is used in the scientific method. It's called making predictions. And so whichever theory, whichever hypothesis, I should say, is able to make the most accurate predictions, because those kind of things could easily be observed, that would also lead you to more of a truth claim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I would say, one thing I could offer is like the reason I would say non-dualistic logic is the most reliable form is that the meanings made by this sort of language or integrated mode of thought more closely mirror the interconnecting structure of the meaning itself, right?
I don't follow that. What does it mean?
I mean, all the meanings of the words, of everything, the observations, everything that has a starting point, and that starting point is that fundamental premise that we have this conscious experience of the world. It all arises out of that, and then we simply infer to the most, again, we go back to parsimony. And so, you can look at like symmetric logic, like you can. I think asymmetric logic can sort of resolve that in some kind of way. I think we talked a great deal about that the other day with objective ethics.
Well, I remember you bringing up here consistent logic. Maybe is that the same category?
Sort of like symmetric logic would say like.
Sorry, gentlemen, I'm going to have to bow out. It's been a pleasure. Okay. I need to refuel. And
yeah, I'm about to refuel myself.
I'd like to thank Joel for putting me into slow motion over the fact that I'm actually relying on reasoning without actually earning reasoning. So that's what caused me to spiral into this. Oh my goodness, what am I doing? I can't even justify reasoning. Where am I going to go with any of this? But so
it gets tricky.
That was fun and interesting. It's been an absolute pleasure. Pleasure to meet you all. And
Paul, I'm really glad we got a chance to talk, buddy.
Nice to meet you,
man. Me too. It's absolutely great.
Nice to meet you, Paul. Thank you so much.
Where's the button I need to push?
Oh, you see that little red button?
Oh, that's the red Leave Studio. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
Right.
Have a good one, my friend.
Thanks so much. Cheerio, fellas.
See you.
All right. Yeah, I'm kind of running out of fuel myself. I'm talked out, man. I had to do an interview early this morning. I'm off. I'm going on 2 hours of sleep myself, and I did an interview early this morning. I've been right after that. I came in here and did this for the last 3 hours, so I'm kind of spent.
Well, Scott, we should pick this up. Tired, man.
Yeah, man. I'm probably gonna go ahead and take a nap. But Joel, thank you so much for giving us so much to think about, man. That's what this is all about, anyways. And
well, as always, I appreciate the chance to put these challenges out and kind of have the ideas questioned. I appreciate that you guys are willing to do it.
Hell yeah, man. Thank you so much. And you guys have a good one. I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream now. Objective Ethics is going to be with us. Was it going to be next week? Is it next week?
Well, let's go ahead and do a quick update. So we're going to have Tom. He's going to be our featured guest next Saturday. Then after that, we're going to have Deconverted Man. For anybody who doesn't know, he's an atheist, and he's going to be talking to us about logic, formal and informal logic, and the logical problems with the presuppositional arguments. So anybody who's tired of getting tag and the Kalam cosmological argument and stuff run on them, then Deconverted Man actually breaks down all the logical contradictions involved in those arguments. So that could be a good episode. And then we'll be doing the trifecta on the first Saturday of next month. And I think we talked about, maybe with Scott, Sophia and I talked about maybe doing the trifecta episode the first and last Saturday of each month. So as
Right.
long as that continues to go well. So our next one is going to be on, we're going to talk about time, A theory of time and B theory of time. And then the one following that at the end of the month is going to be talking about free will. So we got a lot on the horizon. Definitely stay tuned.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Hey, what's the topic for next Saturday with Tom?
I got a
That one-
pretty I got a good one here. So I'm gonna go with Cradle versus converted atheist. Who's the real one?
Oh,
I'm
nice.
kidding.
Oh, I was like that.
It's like the no true Scotsman fallacy of atheists. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. The no true Scott. We got the no true Christian fallacy. We got the no true
Exactly.
Scotsman fallacy. Now Tom's brought the no true atheist fallacy to the table. Yeah,
Exactly.
I don't think
There we
we've
go.
actually picked a topic yet. I'm going to leave it
No, we
to
haven't.
Tom, and then he's going to surprise us. But we always do something interesting, and I know Tom, if he doesn't decide on something particular, we'll come up with something interesting. I have no doubt. But I think Tom will probably sift through his bag of tricks, and then
I got a few
we'll be
ideas.
in
So yeah, we're
communication
good.
this week. Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. I'm looking
I'll
forward
wait
to it,
till
Tom.
then.
I really enjoyed getting to know you. So I'm looking forward to hearing more from you.
Sounds good.
For sure. Okay, guys, we'll see you next time, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good to talk to all of you.
Yep.
Likewise.
Nice to
Take
meet
care,
you,
guys.
Tom.
Yep. You all
got
have a
it.
great day.
Later.